ladies and gentlemen. Time to get started. Happy Friday, everyone. I'll be introducing Dr. Scott. My name is John Langshaw. A few quick things. Please turn off all phones. Please stay in the class the entire time. Please. That's imperative. Did everyone sign in? That is a yes. In case of an emergency, please make sure you know where all the emergency exits are. The restrooms will be located in the International Ballroom, which will be right outside here. Once you're out the event, we like to recycle the badges. Please place them in the box on your way out. There'll be a box placed back there. And I'd like to again welcome you to the 2019 LA Dental Meeting. Dr. Scott, good morning. Dr. Scott is the president of Clifton Associates Incorporated, practice development and coaching for dental teams. Scott has worked with hundreds of dental practices since 1991, developing business plans, coaching and training dental teams, developing leadership skills, enhancing communication skills, training teams on customer service techniques, and successfully helping practices grow to new levels of productivity and profitability. In 1994, Scott joined Clifton Associates, a coaching firm that works exclusively with dental practices in Southern California. In addition to being a primary trainer of his company's in-office coaching program, Scott speaks regularly at a variety of industry events and conferences, dental societies, and study club meetings. Clifton Associates, Inc. is accredited with the Dental Board of California and hosts continuing education courses in a variety of clinical and practice management topics. Scott's experiences in different types of offices with many doctors and employees have given him insight and knowledge to be able to help most any practice improve. Dr. Scott?
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here. So I told you where the emergency exits were. If we start to go down and the oxygen masks come down, please give it to the person to your right. Oh wait, we're not flying. All right, well, it's good to be here. I want to thank everybody at the LA Dental Meeting and Expo for having me out. It's good to be here. I have a wide variety of people here in terms of probably where you are in your practices. I've talked to a few people. Some of you don't have practices. Some of you wish you didn't have practices. And some of you are going to get them. He told you a little bit about myself. I got into dentistry in '91. I've worked with probably 500 dental practices just in office, hands-on coaching over the years. I do a tremendous amount of practice evaluations, practice appraisals. As I was talking to this lady over here, when dentists are buying a practice, it's different than it was. It's Joe, right? Joe, when you bought your practice, did anybody help you with due diligence? Started from scratch. That's the kiss of death today. I don't recommend that generally, unless you're moving into an area that's got big industry and a lot of people coming into it. So people have, they do inspections today. And so they hire somebody like me who knows a little bit about it. From probably the 1,000 or more practices that I've evaluated, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly that dentistry has to offer. There are a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things with respect to dentistry. And so I'm going to share some of that information with you today. I'm going to share with you some of the things, and I'll move so I'm out of your way from time to time. I see a lot of different ways to do things, so I'm going to share with you the things that I believe that are very helpful. So, having said that, first thing you're going to do is a little exercise here. Pick up your phone. I know you all have your phones. He said to turn them off or get rid of them, but I'm telling you to pull it out. Pull out your phone right now. Everybody, now don't call me. Just pull out your phone and enter me as a contact. You guys in New Zealand, I don't know about you. Put me in as a contact because there's going to be some things that I talk about today, and if you'll text me, you got to have me in there as a contact, right? If you'll text me certain words, I will provide you with certain bits of information as we're talking. So, go ahead, take a moment. This is when it's okay to have your phone out. All right. Who needs more time? You're not playing ball with us. Oh, I already did, okay. All right, we're going to be talking about developing your business plan. There's a lot of different ways to run a practice. What's right? What's wrong? What's good? What's bad? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? It's very debatable. And what works for you might not work for this guy right here. Marketing's kind of like that too. I'm giving a lecture tomorrow on marketing, and that's a fascinating subject because Joe might have hit a home run with direct mail advertising while you don't even believe in it. Or you did it and it doesn't work. So there's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things. Dentistry's kind of interesting. It's, I like to say it's 51% clinical and 49% business. But let me ask you a question. Why is there so little practice management and business taught in dental school? Why is it that only 20% of your continuing education requirements can be practice management? How many of you would agree that the business side of dentistry is perplexing, challenging? Okay, now watch all these hands go up. What about the employee management side? Even more perplexing, even more challenging, no doubt about it. Why is it that we are not allowed? Well, I don't know that I have that clear-cut reason, but I can tell you that's why I'm here today to talk with you. That's why I have a company, so that I can help people. Dentistry can be very challenging. A lot of people don't have a business plan. This is what you guys, we just need a plan. We just need a plan. By the way, what your plan is and what his plan is may not be the same plan. We're going to talk about some components today that should be pretty much applicable to even specialists' plan. Employee management is challenging. Employees that don't see the big picture, that can be challenging. Communication issues, lack of core systems, practice statistics that are confusing. How many of you really understand how to read your profit and loss statement? I got one guy here. Most hands didn't go up. To me, that's just simple stuff. I have a degree in business, and to me, that's no big deal. But when you don't do it every day, it can be very challenging. And more importantly, the other numbers associated with the practice. Improving case acceptance can be challenging. How many of you struggle with getting yes as often as you want yes? Meaning, yes, I'll do the dentistry. Last minute cancellations and no-shows. This is one of the biggest problems I deal with every day. Every day. By the way, if anybody asks me, you got to give me $1. I'm funding my retirement. Delinquent receivables. Insurance-dependent patients. How many of you experience problems with that? Insurance-dependent patients. If it's not covered, maybe I don't need it. Why are you telling me I need it? I don't want it. There's some challenges. How many of you struggle with most of these things? How many of you aren't going to raise your hand no matter what I say? All right, so we've got the business side of the practice. We got the clinical side of the practice. Most doctors that I've worked with over the years are very interested and passionate about the clinical side. Most doctors that I've worked with over the years are not as passionate about the business side or even as knowledgeable. And it's not that you're inept, it's that that's not where your training lies. With a degree in business, that's where my training lies. Doing what I do has given me more and more and more experience over the years to learn more and more about that. But when you're in the mouth all day long, it's no surprise that the business side of things can be challenging. But if we don't pay attention to the business side, we can have far bigger problems. Lawsuits, employee claims, complaints, loss of patients, lack of productivity, lack of efficiency, which translates into dollars that you're spending. So let's talk about what we can do to plan for the new year. The time to develop your business plan is way in advance, not when the year is upon us. The guy who comes in late brings breakfast, right? Oh, I'm kidding.
All yours.
This is the spray zone, so be careful. All right, get out of your way here. All right, so the clinical side, I'm assuming you have that part down. All the various clinical procedures, specialty procedures, perio program, CE for your team. Obviously, you got to be OSHA and CPR certified, OSHA compliant. But let's go down the business trail today. Let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about employee management. We're going to talk about systems, communication, customer service, statistics, overhead. We're going to get into some detail about this today, and particularly the time that I'm going to spend the most on is case acceptance, because I've seen that can be very challenging for you guys. So I want to give you a little bit extra on that today. The first component, here's number one. Number one on that business plan. Somebody's got to be a leader. How many of you enjoy that? How many of you woke up born leaders? There. This is the guy. Here, man, you're going to help me today. The owner is the leader, not your office manager. Guys, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you cannot pass that baton off. I call him Dr. Weiner. He calls me almost daily. Scott, that's why I hired Leslie. I'm like, Leslie doesn't make those decisions, man. You do. Those are ownership decisions. You got to be the leader. So we're going to take a little test here. We're going to see what kind of leader you are. This comes right out of the pages of this book by John Maxwell called Leadership Gold. I want you to think about this for a moment and tell me which one you are. Number one, you're the type of leader that doesn't want advice. You don't object to advice. Are you the kind of person that welcomes advice? Do you actively seek advice? And the fifth category is that you often follow the advice that you're given. You don't need to answer, but it's something to think about. I would propose to you that how you are with your employees is how they're going to be. Think about children. Kids that grow up in families with bad manners develop bad manners. By the way, manners are something that we had when I was a kid. That's something that they don't have too much of today, right? Leadership continues with what you put up with. What are you going to tolerate with your team? I would highly recommend that you kill the negativity, kill the disbelief, kill the mediocrity. You got to raise the bar with employees. I took this picture right here. Please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space. And sometimes Dr. Weiner's like this, man. He's like Linus. He's got that cloud over him, and everything is gloom and doom. What do you think life is like being one of his employees? Oh, my gosh. I'm so glad that after about 2 or 3 hours in his office, I get to leave. It's one of the best times of my week. Employees that have this attitude, and it happened in a meeting with me yesterday. We start talking about morning huddle meetings, and the first thing that comes out of this hygienist's mouth is, yeah, but the problem is we can't do that because... I'm like, step down, sister. That won't work because... Or worse yet, my doctor, we can't do that here because my doctor won't, ... Or she won't, ... We better take a lesson out of the playbook of NASA. You remember this. Some of you might not remember it. Most of you in here probably do. Houston, we have a problem. Do you remember this story? Apollo 13. What's happening here is that one of the 8 oxygen tanks has exploded. So now they've lost one oxygen tank, and the second one is leaking because remnants damaged the second oxygen tank. The problems that these guys are beginning to experience are mounting up faster than they can be solved. CO2 is accumulating within the cabin. Remnants from the explosion are keeping them from being able to navigate by the stars back to Earth. Internal condensation is now endangering the electrical system. One problem after another. Jerry Woodfill, the lead engineer, his objective, get our men back. Anybody remember this? You were there, Joe, right? No, I'm kidding. Get our men back. These engineers are gathered around and they're looking at their boss and they're saying, we can't do this. They're going to die. And his attitude was, failure is not an option. Work the problem. And they gathered everything that they had in that shuttle together, and they figured out a way that they could get the CO2 out of the shuttle. It was one of the most brilliant examples of crisis management and teamwork that I've seen or heard of. Our attitude and our practice determines what's going to happen and how successful we're going to be. Doctors, you're the leaders. That starts with you. If you're negative, if you're a blamer, if you're focused on the problem, people throw that stuff at me all the time. Yeah, but the problem is, I'm like, stop for a second. Why don't we talk about how we can make it happen instead of what the problem is? That's right here. That's an attitude. That's a state of belief. And if you're all Linus-like with gloom and doom all around you, I feel sorry for your employees. So if you don't think that you're a good leader, This is what I have to say to that. Doesn't matter. Man up. Get over it. Get involved. Get better. You don't need to be perfect at this thing. Just keep this in mind, though. As the leader, you set the tone based on your habits, your appearance, your demeanor, your attitude toward everything that you do in your practice. Your employees are watching you. How many of you have children? How many of you have children that are old enough now where you see the worst in you coming out of them? Where do you think they learned that stuff? And every time I see my daughter, I'm telling you what, she got a sharp little tongue on her. And she'll say something, and I'm like, I taught her that. I taught her that. And yesterday she says to me, yeah, Dad, you talk for a living. You're good with that mouth of yours. And I'm like, oh, no. So item number 1 is be conscientious about how you are leading your employees. Every team needs a leader. I don't care whether you have 1 employee or 50 employees. There has to be a leader. Employee management. The business plan continues with employee management and having a plan for that. The fun part. What does your staffing model look like? This is really important. You've got to be right-sized. In a general practice, by the way, how many specialists besides Dr. Endo? What kind of specialist? Prost, okay. Very akin to general. Do you have a hygiene department? Okay, so you have a higher level general practice with more complex cases, but it's closely akin to a general practice, certainly more so than an endo practice. Any other specialists in the group? All right, so in our practices, we have 3 jobs in the front. We have a hygiene coordinator, a financial coordinator, we have a treatment coordinator or an appointment coordinator. You call them whatever you want. I've worked in practices where one person, by the way, that practice that we were talking about, 1 employee does everything. 1 employee, everything. That's a lot of shoes to fill. But I've been in offices where 1 person does everything in the front. How many of you have practices where you have 1 employee that does everything in the front? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that as long as the job can be done. I've been in practices where it takes 7 people to do all 3 of those jobs because of what? The active patient base, the number of providers, the volume of people coming in and out every day. And then in the back, we've got a dentist or multiple dentists with several hygienists. 1 doctor checking double hygiene with a restorative schedule is about as one can sanely be scheduled. I just started with a client, and he's trying to check triple hygiene amongst having a restorative schedule. And he's like, he's just running all the time. No time to spend with any patients, really. He's got a full-grown tiger by the tail. He's grown this thing so well that he hires me to come in there and help him smooth things out. I'm like, dude, you got to stop this triple hygiene stuff. This is crazy. So we had an idea about that. In a larger practice, we may have 2, 3 dentists. We may have more assistants. We might have 1 more person in the front, maybe 2 again. Is there anybody here who has more than 2 doctors in your practice? How many doctors? 5 doctors, okay. So there may be 15, 20, 25 employees in that practice. No. Oh, okay, specialists, okay. Are you general? Okay, you're the general with, it's a group practice.
No, it's a multi-specialty that I hire specialists to come in and work.
That's synonymous with my word group. So you may have 10 employees, maybe? Yeah. So again, the quantity of employees that you have is going to be dependent upon the caliber of those individuals. I've met employees that do the work of 2 superstar employees. Anybody have employees like that? If your employee is with you right now, you better raise your hand. But I've also met employees that do the work of about a half of a person. Have any of you, let me be careful how I say this, have any of you ever had one of those people that have worked for you? I'm sure you don't right now, especially if she's with you. How many employees in the room? What, front office, back office? Both, okay, there we go. She doesn't work for that guy though. Any employees anywhere else? All doctors, wannabe doctors. You're an employee. Okay, front or back? Front, okay. All right, why is this so important? It's so important because if you're not right-sized, if you're not properly staffed, it can be very costly to the business. If you're short-staffed, and by the way, before I go any further, let me say, I know that this is the highest line item to your profit and loss statement every month. This is the biggest expense. Unless, of course, you have one employee and the rent costs more than that person's wage. I get that. But for the most part, this is the biggest single expense that's reoccurring every month. How many of you would agree with that in your practice? And so just the thought of me saying, you need one more. Oh, no, no, no. No, I don't want to manage it. I don't want to pay for it. But if we're short-staffed, it takes away from service. If we're short-staffed, it contributes to employees falling behind in their responsibility. If we're overstaffed, that makes for idle employees sometimes. Not everyone has the same level of a work ethic. And being overstaffed can already add more to the highest line item expense that you pay for every month. So we've got to be right-sized. Very important component of that staffing business plan. If you don't know what right size should be, then talk to somebody who can help you with that. That's what I do when I evaluate practices. When we're talking about hiring, this is a very interesting subject, hiring new employees. How many of you struggle with finding new employees? A few of you. Dental assistants are the hardest position to find today. Good quality dental assistants. I've met a few bad ones. I am job. That came from Mrs. Doubtfire. That was the quality of the interview that I did. You see, what we're really talking about, because here's the question. Do I place my ad on Craigslist? Do I place my ad on Indeed? Do I go to one of these dental sites? What do I do? Where's the best place? Where's the best place to find them?
All of them?
Yeah, right. Who said that? All of them. Here's what we're really talking about here. We're talking about you placing ads, filtering resumes, and hoping that you find qualified candidates that meet your criteria. That is what you're hoping for. Then that has to intersect with the right qualified employees or candidates seeing your ad when they're looking. I've been in offices where it's like, man, I would have loved to have hired that lady. Well, she wasn't looking for a job then. And vice versa. So please understand, it's a matter of timing. This thing has to intersect. Don't give up on the ads that you're placing just because, and I hear this all the time, that doesn't work. Indeed, that doesn't work. Craigslist, that doesn't work. It's not a matter of it working. It's a matter of timing more than it is a matter of working. Now, you can always find some placement agency if you want to spend the bucks to do that. That's just fine too. So, the process, real quick, I want to take you through this because I've talked to a lot of people over the years that spin their wheels wasting time interviewing candidates. Let's talk about a way to filter a little bit. You place multiple ads, yes, all of them, within reason, right? Depends on how many resumes you have coming at you. Craigslist, Indeed, dental jobs. You might want to take a picture of this slide. A lot of different sites that you can go to place ads. Some of them are low cost, some of them are medium, some of them are more expensive. Notice I don't have Monster up here. I don't have any of the big recruiting places because I'm kind of staying dental specific. So what, do you need that back? Yeah. And by the way, if you place your ads in Craigslist, place it, obviously it's under health care and dental. If you're looking for a hygiene coordinator, that's more customer service oriented. So we place our ad, we get resumes. Don't have applicants call your practice. That's like 1980-like, right? We don't do that anymore. Don't waste your time. Besides, the employee that you're about to fire might find out. So review the resumes. Filter the resumes. What are we going to filter resumes by? Geographics. How far, if the employee puts their address on the resume and they live 40 miles away in Southern California, that's trouble. Oh, it's not a problem. No, I'm good with that. Yeah, they're good for that in about 2 weeks. And the next thing you know, they're telling you they want more money because they can find a job closer to home, and it's like, are you playing me? So we filter the resumes based on geographics. We filter the resumes based on whether they're job hoppers. We filter the resume based on whether it's a well-written resume. I am job is not a good resume. We conduct telephone interviews. Pick up the phone and talk to the applicant for 5 or 10 minutes first so that you can find out whether they sound the part. You are in a business where people don't really want what you have to offer. Let's be real. I view dentistry like I view car repairs. I bought a new car a couple of months ago. I get the complimentary 5,000-mile service. Do you know that it's still a pain in the butt for me to go do that for free? I got to go there. I got to take time out of my schedule. I've got to either wait or I've got to get a loaner. And I'm telling you, in the back of my mind, I know they're going to find something. They're going to stick it to me. I'm a distrusting kind of guy. I know they're going to stick it to me. Just like your patients think about you, Bruce. He's going to find something. Filter, filter, filter. We need people that sound friendly and positive and upbeat. The telephone interview will save you the personal interview if they don't sound that way. Conduct personal interviews after that. If they sound the part, invite them in for a personal interview. Please check their references. Go online, go onto social media, go onto Facebook, look them up, Google them. I Googled a dentist that called me a couple of months ago, and you know, she has a little bit of an issue with the state board going on right now. Huh. So I met with her and I said, you got far bigger problems than you need me to solve. This isn't the right time. Conduct working interviews, particularly for back office employees, assistants and hygienists. Let them work a day or two. Yes, you have to pay them. Yes, you have to match those taxes. I know some of you can do it under the table. You do whatever you want. I'm not telling you to pay them under the table. But work with them for a little while. See if they are a one-handed dental assistant or whether they can do four-handed dentistry. Or what if you're a six-handed dental guy or gal? And then you might want to look up and ask for a little bit of help, because that never hurts either when you're trying to pick the right ones. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is designing an design an adequate model. Because if you're not right-sized, you'll either suffer for a lack of service or you'll be overpaying. Your business plan continues with, there's a whole row right there, Doc. Your business plan continues with clear team communication. How many of you are really good at this communication stuff with your employees? I got one guy that says he is. Most of you didn't raise your hand, so I'm just interpreting that as a no. How many of you are the kind of people that don't particularly favor confrontation? Come on, I know you're in the room. You don't enjoy the confrontation. Yeah, I see that you're barely nodding now. Listen, as strong as my personality is, I don't like it either. Who likes to argue and debate? But there are people out there that do that. And if your lines of communication are not open and clear, you could be dealing with problems later on that you hadn't thought of. So where that begins is in the office policy manual. The rules, the standards, the protocols, the practices by which you operate your business. And the way, doctor, that you'll operate your business isn't going to be the same as the way Joe runs his business. And there's nothing right or wrong about that. You have the prerogative to design your business the way you want it to be, to design the rules and the policies the way you want them to be. I would suggest that you either go to the trouble to write one from scratch, and if you don't know a lot about business and labor law, writing one from scratch is risky. I generally say go to CDA. How many of you are CDA members? You can get them for free. You can get a template for free. Or go buy one, or better yet, go to a labor attorney and spend $1,500 to $2,000 and get one that is about as up to snuff with current labor law, and that changes quite often. How many of you know that today you can no longer ask an employee what they made at their last job? You can't do that anymore. You can't ask them if they've been convicted of a felon. in the interview process. All right, felony. Are you a felon? Have you had a felony?
Is it not in the application?
It can't be in the application. Can't be in the application. Now, once you've agreed to hire them, then you can get that information. But not in the application stage.
What about during background check?
Now you've moved to labor law. I wouldn't attempt to give you that answer. Yes, sir?
Is that state or federal law?
I believe that's state. Was there another question? Okay. So you can get a policy manual from an attorney, from CDA, from a payroll company. Many of the payroll companies help with that kind of stuff. HR companies. Please, please, please have one. If you do not have one and the policies are not defined, I'm going to give you an example in just a moment, you are likely to have problems down the road. I'm going to give you an example. So Dr. Weiner, this guy's popular today. Dr. Weiner calls me, he says, Leslie wants a raise, and she's telling me she's got an offer at another job, and if I don't give her the raise that she's going to leave. I'm sure you've never heard that before. And she wants 2 weeks of paid vacation. I said, I'm sure she does. How long she worked for you? 9 months? I'm sure she does want 2 weeks of paid vacation. But he's trembling. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I said, well, let's talk about what your policy manual says about paid time off. What days? He says, I don't know what it says. I said, it's your business. What do you mean you don't know what it says? Well, I don't know. He's so frazzled. He can't even have a conversation with me about it. I'm like, dude, send me the manual. Let's look it up. Nothing about paid holidays. Nothing about paid vacation. So first of all, if he concedes and gives her the 2 weeks of paid vacation, and the dental assistant that he just hired suddenly wants that too, is that fair? Is that right? Is that what he wanted to do, really? So we wrote his policies on paid vacation and how that is earned, 1 week after 1 year, 2 weeks after 2 years. And I said, you're going to tell her that she's got 3 more months to go before she gets 1 week of vacation. He goes, but she wants 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, let's dress up 2 weeks of paid time off. Let's go to holidays. Let's give her the 6 paid holidays. So she works a 4-day week. Now she just got 2.5 weeks, didn't she? And I say to him, make sure in your policy manual that it has a little clause in there that says the holiday must fall on a work day. And make sure that it says in there that she should work the day before and the day after. He says, I don't even understand what you're talking about, what that's all about. I don't get it. I said, Doc, let me explain it to you. Let me let you feel the pain first. Christmas falls on a Sunday. You going to pay her for that day? How many of you feel down deep in your heart that you shouldn't pay an employee for a holiday if it falls on a day that you don't even work? It's okay to raise your hands. I know how you feel. Absolutely. That's why it says in the manual that the holiday must fall on a scheduled work day. Well, we got 3 of them that are guaranteed. Labor Day, Memorial Day, and Thanksgiving. Those are generally work days. The other 3 rotate. So that means 2 or 3 days out of 7, 2 or 3 years out of 7, you won't pay. Now, how many of you have had an employee, Memorial Day, Monday, you're off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Memorial Day is the holiday. They get paid. Tuesday, they get sick. Now they've had a 5-day vacation, and 2 of those days were paid. And now he's like, oh. You see my point? Just a little bit of verbiage can save you some anguish down the road. And with Leslie, she's a ball buster, man. I'm telling you what, she's a strong personality. She steamrolls right over her doctor. She'll take advantage of him, or she will control the situation and he won't like it. Have a policy manual. I could go on and on with all kinds of stories and examples. We don't have time for all that today. Have written job descriptions for your employees. That list of tasks that they're responsible for. Not the system itself, but the list of tasks. Everything that you expect to be done in your office needs to be on someone's job description. Maybe even your own. Who cleans the fish tank? Who waters the flowers? Who straightens the magazines? Who takes out the trash? Who mops the floor? Who cleans the toilet? And if you don't have a janitorial service, this becomes a sticky issue. Everything's got to be clearly defined. If I come to work for you and you don't have a clearly defined job description for me, I'm not going to know what I'm supposed to do. But you'll be real quick to jump down my throat when something's not done, though. Well, did you tell me to do it? You see, you're going to pay out money expecting me to do what I'm supposed to do, but if I don't know what I'm supposed to do, it's really sad when an employee doesn't have a clearly defined job description. You don't have a lot of ground to stand on when it comes time for this, performance review. If you don't have that job description, if I haven't told you as my employee that it's your job to keep the receivables over 90 days under 10%, where's the standard there? Is that even your job? Other things you need for performance reviews. Many doctors that I know don't like performance reviews because they think that the employee's going to ask for a raise. They avoid the performance reviews because they don't want to give the raise. They avoid the performance reviews because they don't want to deal with the confrontation. I'm sure there's nobody in the room that feels that way today. And a few giggles, I get it. You want to be armed in a performance review? Have a job description. Have a performance evaluation form. Have the statistics that are measured, if statistics are measured. Have standards of performance, if those are defined. Have employee performance records, if the employee has been written up, or the opposite is if there are commendations, things that you have found them doing well. Have the employee's attendance records. Guys, here's rule number 2 for musts today. Policy manual is a must. Time records are a must. Time records are a must. If you have these things, you'll have a much easier conversation. If you don't have these things, and I say to you, what's your first name? Janelle. Janelle, I'm going to give you a 2 performance review on a scale of 1 to 5, and I'm only going to give you a 3-nickel raise per hour. Now, she thinks she's all that in a bag of chips, right? She thinks she's a 1. You're the best, right? Yeah. But I'm giving her less than. And she says, but why? But why? Why aren't I getting the maximum amount of a raise? Well, because that's just how I was feeling about you, Janelle. I really didn't come into this conversation planned to give you a reasonable explanation. It's just because my name's on the door and that's the way I feel. That's not really fair to people. Go in there, and if you're going to give them a less than average rating on something, please give them specific feedback of where they need to improve. When there's mutual respect, people listen to feedback differently. When there's no rational explanations, when there's condescension, when people are condescending, when it's my way or the highway, that doesn't breed respect. So if you've got all this, and there's a lot in here. Statistics that are measured, standards of performance. There's a lot of meat in that right there. You hire me to be a widget maker in your company. How many widgets am I supposed to make? And what is the average that most of your widget makers make? A widget is a fictitious product, for those of you who don't know. It doesn't have anything to do with dentistry. So we have to be clear in our communication. Develop and update your employee communication documents. Everybody benefits from clear communication in a practice. The next thing we want to talk about is designing and executing, in terms of designing and executing a business plan, is the non-patient treatment time. Non-patient treatment time is meetings. I'm sure this describes how many of you feel about meetings. How many of you love employee meetings? Look at that. There's one hand that went up. How many of you would, let me be soft, would prefer to not go to one? Let alone lead it. Meetings are where you work on your business. I think they got this whole thing backwards here. They call it having a practice, but you don't practice every day. You work every day, but do you stop the handpiece and the phone and practice? 1,000 feet from my home is the Los Angeles Rams practice facility. My sons played football as well. They practice 200, 250 days a year to play 15, 16 games a year. The practice should far outweigh the playing. But in dentistry, we work. You're not practicing. When you practice, you stop. And we try new things and we talk about new things. And many of you may feel as ill-equipped at having employee meetings as you were when you had children, as I felt when I had children. But I embrace that responsibility. You like this? Peace, baby. I learned what I needed to learn. I learned that that crying baby was colicky or needed to be changed or was hungry or had gas. You see, when they rolled out my wife in a wheelchair with my new son, the first son, and they brought him up to the car, it was a beautiful moment. How many of you have been there? You been there? Beautiful moment. They wheel her up. Nurse is all smiling, helps her in the car, gets my kid in the car seat, looks at me and says, "Good luck." I said, "Wait a minute. Where's the owner's manual?" She said, No, we don't sell those here. Good luck. And there I go. I've got to learn. And I found myself in hopeless moments at times. How many of you have been in those hopeless moments with your employees? Not with your children, with your employees. You got two ladies going at it. And you're like, "I don't want any part of this." And they're looking at you like, "Save me." And not even thinking about how other situations could be problematic. I had no idea. I'm sure you've never been in any of these situations either, but here was my experience with my children, with my team, with managing teams, is that I show up. I put time into my commitment. His first word was ball. And this kid chased a ball for 25 years. It was a golf ball, it was a soccer ball, it was high school football, it was college football, and I went to those games, and I sat out in the sun. I'm a white, fair-skinned guy sitting out in the sun. That's skin cancer kind of thing. No. But you know what? I showed up. And I went to those dance recitals, and I went to those dance competitions. From the age of 5 till 18, it never ended, and it was so expensive, those stupid costumes. But I showed up. And I showed up for the Indian guides, and I showed up for the little pine car derby things, and I went camping, and I showed up. And I did the best that I could do. And I got 2 of them off the payroll now. And my point is that it's the time. It's not about the owner's manual. It's the time that you put into managing your employees. Let me not forget to give credit where credit is really due here. She almost appears angelic there, doesn't she? My wife is the better half of we showed up. We put the time in. And the same concept applies to your employees. You may not know exactly what to do, and there is no perfect employee management manual that you're going to find. But showing up and putting time into morning meetings, putting time into team meetings, systems review. You have to talk about the important things over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Because the day that you stop talking about them, there are people, some employees that think, "I don't think we have to do that anymore. He hasn't brought it up in a while." That good customer service. He hadn't brought that up in about a year. Maybe we can slack on that. There are people that think that just because it's out of sight, it's out of mind, it's done, right? Have any of you wondered that in your practice? We talked about this months ago, and you think to yourself, who told you to stop? Has that ever happened? It's perplexing. You have to talk about things over and over and over. I like to tell people, it's like the Golden Gate Bridge. They start painting on one end, and they paint and paint and paint, and they get all the way to the end, and they start over. And that's exactly what systems review is in a business. You have to put time into performance reviews. Please keep in mind, this is not about the big ball of dirt going around the big ball of fire, and then they deserve a big... Did anybody understand that? Big ball of dirt's the earth. Goes around the big ball of fire called the sun. There we go. Now we're on to something. That takes how long? In your world? A year. Takes a year in my world. But after a year, what do most employees think they deserve? A big raise. There you go. She's onto it. Just because a year of time passes doesn't mean, I'm not suggesting they don't deserve a raise. I'm saying don't make the performance review strictly about raises. Make it about feedback, recognition, praise, appreciation. If there's anything employees love more than money, I know, don't be careful. People want appreciation. I know they want their money. But people want appreciation. You want appreciation. Doesn't it make you feel good when a patient has said to you they're really happy with what you've done? My question for you is, do they really know what you've done? Open crown margin? Doesn't matter. Other meetings. Accounts receivable meeting. Scheduling review meetings. Doctors meetings. Partners meetings. Annual retreats. That's where the annual retreat is where this business plan begins. This is where we sit down and say, we're going to be working on these things. And obviously routine CE. Please, have meetings consistently and work on your business, not just in your business. We're going till 4 today, right? All right. Next part of your business plan continues with practice systems. Systems are a noun, a regular plan or procedure that is defined and documented. Systems. Systems are about efficiency, they save you money, they create consistency, they improve organization, they improve communication, they reduce firefighting. How many of you feel like a firefighter sometimes? You're just putting out problems, and it's very disruptive to the dentistry that you try to do. Systems, recall and uncompleted treatment, scheduling, financial arrangements and collection protocol. When we get to the end, you can take a picture if you'd like. Protocol for handling broken appointments. Practice statistics and measurement. The new patient experience. How we document dentistry that we do. Team patient education. Handoffs when you come to the treatment room. Treatment presentation. Our standard for taking x-rays and probing and photographs and exams. Our sterilization techniques, the equipment maintenance, dental supplies, inventory control, room and tray setup. It baffles me when doctors get so frustrated about trays not being set up properly. And I say, well, have you told them how to set those trays up? Do you have a list? Have you taken pictures of a proper tray setup? Do you have that in a little book in the back? And they're like, well, no. Well, that's a pretty easy thing to do. So what I want to do is I want to talk for a little bit about 3 of these systems. Let's talk about recall. And I'm not going to teach you about recall today. I'm talking to you about the importance of recall. Let's look at how important recall is at driving the whole process in your practice as well, sir. Not necessarily in the endo practice. We start with some identifiable place where we can get an active patient count. That is different reports in different programs, and the report may not be accurate in and of itself if you do not inactivate charts as patients decide that they're not going to be returning, which is often the culprit to that number being wrong. That practice that we were talking about in CME. 1,200 active patients. Really? I go in there, I found out it's a horse of a different color. Because there are other ways to find out what active really is. We need to understand that number. In this example, excuse me, that I'm going to talk to you about, we're going to use the number 1,000 active patients. 1,000 active patients coming in twice a year on 6-month recall, right? 30% of them getting one more visit for perio. I'm just giving them one more. Many of those people should be coming in 2 more times, right? In this example, we're going to multiply conservatively by 2.3. By the way, is 30% of the patient base being on a perio maintenance frequency Aggressive, 25% is the national average. I've been in offices where it's 90. It all depends on your perio philosophy. We take 2.3 times 1,000, 2,300 divided by 8 patients per day. I'm kind of pro 1 hour hygiene appointments. That gives us 288 days of hygiene per year, divided by 12 months, divided by 4 weeks. This practice needs 6 days of hygiene per week to satisfy the needs of 1,000 people. This does not include SRPs. This does not include new patients. I'm not telling you they should have 6 days. I'm telling you that the math shows that they need 6 days. Capacity is the second issue. This practice had 2 days of hygiene, 8 patients a day, 4.3, we're going to stretch it to the max here, 4.3 weeks per month. That's for a total of 828 hygiene appointments that they have to fulfill the needs of 1,000 people and 2,300 appointments. You see the problem already? The actual number of prophies in that practice, this is an actual evaluation I did. I go to the computer reports. I look at the procedure report that breaks down the quantity of every hygiene code. Prophies, child prophies, they didn't have any debridements, and perio maintenance. Add them all up together, it's 775. Lady up in the front, she says, our schedule's 94% full, what's the problem? Our hygiene is working great, our recall is great. I say what the problem is. The problem is the difference of 1,525 appointments. All right, what happens when you start working on recall? What do we find? Some people are gone. Passed away, moved away, changed insurance, found another dentist, don't like the fact that the doctor has one blue eye, one green eye. I get it. They changed, they left. Let's take out 25% of those appointments. Let's multiply that by just a $90 prophy fee. That's $99,000 in a year of missing production, plus the exams. We'll use $50. Please don't start talking to me about fees right now. PPO, UCR, let's not go there. That's $140,000 almost, plus the restorative that comes from those exams. Recall is the backbone of every practice. I know you don't like doing exams. Okay, some of you don't like doing exams. They're pesky. They get in the way. You ever feel that way? Oh my gosh. Exams, let me tell you what, if you avoid the exams, you miss the production. Most importantly, you miss helping people prevent further loss or damage to their teeth. Very important part of running a practice. But they don't do that dentistry if trust and rapport is not there. That's the bigger part of getting yes. So the lost opportunity when recall is neglected can be very expensive, very expensive. 2 exams per year. 2 exams per year is not about the $50 per exam. That's not what that's about. That's about building on the relationship. It's about fostering the concept of preventive care. And it's how I help you keep your long-term costs down. We know people get squirrely about the money, right? They don't have the money. They don't want to spend the money. They don't want to borrow the money. They'd rather buy a vacation. So if they're worried about the money, let's talk to them about the money. Let's talk to them about helping keep their long-term costs down. Go there with them, but the opposite angle. Everybody with me? And having those periodic exams gives you time to foster those concepts every 6 months. And if you don't see them every 6 months because you don't do 2 periodic exams per year, you're missing an opportunity. That's the standard of care in dentistry. And I go into some practices and they don't charge for exams, or they only charge for 1 per year. How you make that change is a conversation for a different day. It can be changed. I've changed it successfully many times. The next system I want to talk about is scheduling. Again, I'm not going to try to teach you about scheduling, but I will tell you that accurate scheduling and punctuality build loyalty and patient satisfaction. People don't like unreliable. People don't like to be kept waiting. Scheduling. The number one method for scheduling that I see is fill it up. Stack it, pack it, cram it, jam it, and let's get our doctor happy. I don't know about happy. It's full. Look at this. This actual practice evaluation, I go in there, I'm observing the morning huddle meeting, and the doctor is up in arms about this hole in the schedule. I'm telling you what, this dude's losing his mind. What have you done? What have you done? What are we doing? The meeting breaks, and I say to the lady, why is it so important? Why is it so important that we get that hole filled? She goes, I don't have time to talk to you right now. I got to fill the hole. And I watch these people run around, scurrying around, calling on the phone. I don't even know whether they got it full or not. But I know that later on I went to the doctor and I'm like, man, why is it so important that that hour is full? I said, has the production goal been met for today? That's not what we're about. We're not about the money. I said, I don't care about the money. I said, you're having her fill that hole, but at whose expense? Hers? I mean, the schedule, that's a lot already. Why is that so important to you? Maybe if the goal was met and there was some method to the madness and some balance in your days, this might be enough time for that lady who's been holding her bladder for 3 days to go to the bathroom. And I don't know about you. Well, I'm the doctor. I do whatever I want to do. I'm like, yeah, I got it. There's more to it. A standardized method for scheduling creates more continuity. It allows predictable production. And what we do is we reserve time for things that are important. We reserve time for new patients. We reserve time for emergencies, for high production appointments, surgeries. It depends on your practice. You have some non-productive appointments, don't you? Some zeros? Or are they all high production, Dr. Endo? Not everything's high production. Everybody has low production or no production. It's balance. So what we do is we create a template. We start with the math. We understand the goal. Maybe your goal is $150,000 a month. Maybe your goal is $50,000 a month. Maybe your goal is just to survive. I don't know. But the point is, it's a mathematical lesson. This is the beauty of math, is a pure language. So we do the math, and we determine how many blocks we need for new patients based on history, based on what's happening with our marketing. We determine the blocks that we need for high hygiene production, which is SRPs. Now, if you don't have a hygienist, that's middle-of-the-road stuff for you doctors. We block time for high production. We know that the most important block is lunch. That's going in there first. We put a block in for emergencies. We design the template. I did this on Tuesday in an office, and they were literally drawing it out. I make my clients draw it out and go through it so that the person who has to schedule this owns it and understands it. And then we put it in the computer. We pre-block. You have to manage blocks. You let them go days out if they're not filled with what they were intended to. But this template will allow us a much greater probability of hitting our daily goal if it's filled with what it needs to be filled with. Now, listen, guys, you have to have employees saying yes to dentistry. You have to fill it. If you don't diagnose dentistry, if they're turning you down, then we struggle. But I'm going to tell you what, if you're coming from a place of just starting and you're so desperate that you'll take anything, anytime because you have more time than anything, this doesn't seem as applicable. But once you pass into about the 40,000 plus mark per month, this matters. You get into 100 to 200,000 a month, it really matters. The pieces of the puzzle need to fit up. Why fit together is what I meant to say. Why is it that one doctor struggles to make 50 happen while another doctor can do 100? Is it because of their speed? I would propose to you that it's more about time management and scheduling. There are a lot of other factors that go into that, but a method for scheduling is very helpful. Let's talk about financial management. Money can be a very emotional part of dentistry. Inform before you perform. I know you learned that in dental school. Inform before you perform or even schedule the patient. Don't you agree people get emotional about money? That's like you saying to me, you know, Scott, I really liked your lecture. I think I want to have you out to evaluate my practice. I want to hire a consultant. I say, great, I can help you. And then I say, after we've signed a contract, this is how much it costs. I've never had anybody say, I'll pay whatever you want. Doesn't work that way. People get weird about money. So if we talk about money before money is owed, it's a lot easier to collect money when money is owed. But if we talk about what a procedure costs and how the coupon plays, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say coupon, insurance, the insurance portion, if we talk about all of that beforehand, before we attempt to schedule, now that we eliminate that possibility of a surprise. And people get weird about money. Maybe you've experienced that. I'm sorry, Joan, we were going to do a crown on this tooth, but we need to go ahead and proceed with the root canal. And she says, okay, do whatever you got to do, doc. And then she gets up to the front, and her face looks like this. Root canal, buildup, and crown. You didn't tell me anything about that. How many of you experienced that joy or awkwardness? So the money communication begins at the very beginning when they're new. That begins with a well-written financial policy. There are two big sticky issues in dentistry that are sticky with us. Patients, we expect them to show up. We expect them to pay. There you go. We need to clearly communicate that in a financial policy. Do we take assignment of the insurance benefit or do we not? There's a lot that can go into that. Again, a well-written policy. Insurance brochures can be very helpful. People think that it's the save-all, end-all, be-all. Insurance brochures can be helpful at communicating many questions so that when they're coming into the practice, a front office employee doesn't have to spend as much time, but we know that there's going to be confusion about that matter. We have to go to great lengths. But that great length of communication about the money is preceded by you guys. You guys as doctors designing a treatment plan that is clear enough for your financial or your treatment coordinator to present to a patient. Okay, let's go back and revisit Dr. Weiner. Guy's going to get a commission for me in the stories I'm telling about him today. Scott, you've got to call Leslie. She just needs to talk to the patient. Patient's calling and saying, I want to know how much it's going to cost. She calls me. She says, Scott, I don't have a treatment plan. I said, what do you mean you don't have a treatment plan? She said, I'm looking at the chart. It says we're going to do a bridge or we're going to do an implant. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. How am I supposed to talk about the money? I say, you know what? I feel for you, girl. I call the doctor. I'm like, dude, this is your deal, not hers. I said, what are your treatment plan? He says, I don't know yet. And I said, you don't know because you didn't ask enough of the right questions when you were talking with the patient, chairside. That's where you find that out. So that Leslie can then do her thing. Doctors, you have to take responsibility. Don't give your people a list of teeth. Phase it. Be communicative. You are the architects of the treatment plan. That is solely your responsibility. And if it takes another doctor because it's an interdisciplinary case, so be it. Design the plan before it's time for her to put together the money so that she can put together the money conversation to present in a congruent manner with a well-organized treatment plan. Unclear treatment plans lead to confusing financial discussions. Guaranteed. After the clinical portion has been explained, we review the financial portion of the treatment presentation, and you have your patient sign a treatment plan. I'm going to show you an example a little bit later where I'll get a little bit more specific about this, but signing a treatment plan is a CYA deal. Everybody knows what that is, right? You got to cover yourself for litigation today. I've run into too many doctors. Patients riddled with perio. General dentist didn't tell them. Patient sues the general dentist. General dentist loses. There's no documentation to prove that the patient was informed. Have a patient sign a treatment plan. Then we talk about we define the financial arrangement. Cash, check, or chickens. How will you be paying? All in advance, half in advance, half at the time of treatment. Some people are looking at me going, well, we don't do anything like that, Scott. We do half at prep and half at seat. I said, I'm sorry. Why not get a little bit of money to reserve time? Wait a minute. You guys flew out here, right? You have to pay for that flight in advance? Pay for your hotel in advance? Pay for a car rental? Look at that. And you do that at movie theaters. You do that at concerts. We do that on cruises. We do that at lots of places in our life. Why can't we move this ship in that direction in dentistry? You can. Don't try it overnight. Don't try it without the supervision of your dental coach. Could be troubled waters if you pull the trigger too fast. There's an order to this process. It's called ready, aim, fire. It's not fire, ready, aim. Don't pull that trigger too fast. Post money management. Post all your production, your payments promptly. Process your claims daily. Follow up on your unpaid claims every 10 to 30 days, depending on how you process them. Speaking of insurance, just for tickles and grins, higher level humor, I understand. That's just a joke. Close your days out no later than the next day. Close your months out no later than a couple of weeks later. Why is it important to close your months out? Because if you do not close your months out, your accounts receivables do not age properly, and you don't know how old account balances are. Now, if that doesn't matter to you, this is a part of the business plan. You got to manage money. You taking notes? I've said one thing they like. Doctors, check your day sheets. You were involved in the procedure. Maybe not hygiene, but whatever you were involved, you know what was done. Was it posted? Did we get all those little extra PAs? Did we charge for that extra filling that we did? If you don't check your day sheet, this isn't about catching somebody doing wrong. This is about you and me working together. You post what you're supposed to post, and I'll check it just to see if we did it the right way. We work as a team. It's not you did it wrong or I did it wrong. It's we. We. That's a novel concept for some people. Team. Front versus back. Doctor versus employees. Forget all that crap. It's a team. Check your day sheets every day, doctors. You won't know what was paid, but if it looks fishy, you'll know that too. And I know you want to know about that. So I put together a couple of slides here because this seems to be a very sore subject with some doctors have experienced embezzlement, I'm sure. Anybody here experienced that? Okay. Sorry to pull the scab off. Pay attention to suspicious behavioral signs of employees. An employee who has a lifestyle beyond their means. You know, I've worked in offices where the little lady up in the front, she's single. She makes $25 an hour. And she drives a Mercedes that is twice the value of my car. And I'm like, how's she do that? Lives in a cardboard box. Must live in a cardboard box. They're territorial. Employees that are overly territorial. Employees that are unwilling to allow others access to the financial information. I've gone in to do practice evaluations, and that office manager is there, and she's like, no, you don't need to be on my computer. No, we're not giving you access to that. That is a red flag right there. That's unusual behavior. What is that about? Who am I to say what it is? But I can tell you this, it's very unusual. Wouldn't you agree? People that are honest are transparent. There's nothing to hide. There's an unwillingness to take time off to let others cover the job when they're gone, if they were gone. Continual overtime, working when no one else is there. You know, doctor, I've got a lot of things I've got to do. That's why I stayed till 7:30 last night. And that seems to happen over and over. What's that about? What are you doing in that computer? That's suspicious behavior. Now, if there's a reason, there's a reason. I'm not suggesting people can't work late. But when it happens over and over and it's guarded, there's guarding, there's territorial behavior, fishy business. Any of this ring true? Unusual self-promoting comments about trust. You can trust me, doctor. You know I'm the loyalist, most honest employee you've ever had. You have nothing to worry about. Why does somebody need to come and tell me that? People that are trustworthy and honest don't need to brag about it. Now, some other things. Check your day sheet, as I said before. These are some things that you can do. Routinely audit postings, insurance claims, and adjustments. Look at a claim. Look at how it was posted. Look at a procedure. Look at a patient ledger. Look at how it was posted, how the insurance claims were filed. Most of all, run an adjustment report. Dig into those adjustments that were made. Crafty people can find ways around this kind of stuff. Don't misunderstand me. This isn't all foolproof. But if you go in there and you start looking at adjustments, and it's like, what is this miscellaneous discount right here on Mrs. Jones' account? You didn't give that. What's that about? When the adjustments are not about insurance or about something that you approve, could be a sign of trouble. Dig. By the way, when employees know that you're looking, they're less apt to do something suspicious. Maintain a log of cash receipts. Financial transactions should take place in a very visible area. I do believe in security cameras. I do believe in cameras where money is taking place. That has saved many a doctor that I've worked with. Scan copies of all checks, deposit checks electronically, have a separation of duties. In other words, the person that collects the money is not the person that goes to the bank. I had a lady that worked for me years ago that got involved in making deposits at the doctor's bank. First of all, I'm like, what are you doing? That's what employees do. That's what owners do. No. We're consultants. We're coaches. We don't do that crap. 2 years later, she was sued because she was taking the money to the bank and skimming the cash off the top. This is after I let her go. And she kept working for those guys. Who's responsible? Who? The owner. That's exactly right. Let me say this to you, as bold as it may sound. You are responsible for everything that goes on in your practice. And if you can't handle that, I'm sorry. That's part of the business plan. Step up and be the leader. No access to signing checks. Reconciliation of credit cards and bank statements are done by the owner or the owner's spouse. In other words, a non-employee. Listen, if your wife is skimming money out of the business, I can't help you there. Never sign a blank check. Look for missing checks if you use checks. Look for adjustments. Look for credits that are issued. And your accounts payable, in other words, who pays the bills. Don't let employees do that kind of stuff. You're vulnerable when you put yourself in that kind of position. And review your invoices. I'm not suggesting that you have to review every invoice, but review them every now and again to make sure that what's being ordered and what you're paying out is what you truly are getting. Yeah, they were just some office supplies. Yeah, I ordered a few extra, a printer for myself at home, and I thought I'd get by with that. Listen, I can do that in my business, and you can do that in your business, but when an employee starts ordering crap from Office Depot, and it's a printer, and you didn't need the printer or ever see the printer, you might want to start checking things out every now and again. Next aspect of money management is the financial numbers. Review your financial numbers with your employees. Employees should know about collections, about adjustments, about write-offs, about over-the-counter collections, your receivables over 90 days, and the outstanding insurance claims. Look at these numbers regularly. If you don't understand these numbers, if you don't know where to find these numbers, talk to somebody that can help you. If you don't keep your thumb on this, you may be missing things that you don't want to miss. And the way we do this, where we spend time doing this is in the accounts receivable meeting. Once a month, 30 minutes meeting. Once a month, 30 minutes. Yes?
I have a question with review collections with employees. You mean like how much the office
Brought in.
Isn't it like that could lead for something? For example, they would know how much the office earns, and then they would say, oh my God, this doctor earns this one, and I'm only receiving this one, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so she asks a good question. She says, isn't it, I'm going to paraphrase this,
Yes.
Isn't it risky to divulge collection numbers to an employee who begins to understand how much the business is bringing in? Now, for those who worry about that, sure. For those that operate from a fear-driven scarcity mentality, sure. I believe in a much more open book, transparent policy. And I'm so prepared for that conversation that I say, yeah, I know that you made $2,000 last month and we brought in $50, but let me help you understand where the other $45,000 in overhead goes in my business. And I risk not getting a paycheck while yours is guaranteed. You see, I believe in sharing the break-even number with employees. I believe your employees should know how much it costs to run their business. That's my philosophy. Most people don't have a problem with that. Every now and again, there are people that are so guarded, so protected. No, not going to do it. And I can't tell you that that's wrong. That's unusual. It's not right or wrong. But I would educate my employees so that they understand why it takes as much as it does to run the business. Because we're all in this boat paddling together. And this employee gets that, and this lab gets that, and the rent, and the malpractice insurance, and the workers' comp insurance, and the this. I mean, we're going to talk about overhead in a minute. I'll get deeper into that. I hope I'm answering your question. All right. Have a process for managing delinquent receivables. We send statements every month like they're monthly greeting cards. I don't care if the balance is supposed to be paid by the insurance company. I want the patient to call. Call me. Your insurance hasn't paid. What's your first name?
Luis.
Luis? No, Luis, they haven't paid. Let me give you their phone number. You can give them a call. Let them call. It's their responsibility. Unless, of course, that's not defined in your financial policy. Hello. Collection calls. Collection letters, the attorney letter. It's known as a demand letter. This can be a very powerful letter. You shouldn't be paying $450 an hour to an attorney to send demand letters, but if you have an attorney in your practice and you keep their teeth white in exchange for sending the occasional demand letter, it's a pretty good barter. This is a good one. I had to do this one time. What's it going to take to get this law dog off of me, Scott? I said, pay your stupid bill, doctor. He paid. Collection agencies, small claims court. I wouldn't be going to small claims court for less than a couple grand. It's not worth it. And last but not least, this dude's good at collecting money. All right, consistent financial management practices do not guarantee 100% collections. What they do is reduce the miscommunication and the problems that come from not having them in place. So, develop, review, refine your office systems. Systems will improve consistency in your practice. All right. The business plan continues with designing the new patient experience. I'm going to have to start elevating the speed at which I'm speaking because I'm going to get behind because we're now getting into some deep stuff. This is the biggest part of my lecture. This is probably about 50 slides. And for those of you who care, out of 225. Buckle up, we're going deep on this one. The new patient experience. This is a big deal because the new patient experience shapes whether they're going to come back to you or not. It shapes whether they're going to accept your treatment or not. It shapes whether trust is going to develop or skepticism will develop. The goal in the new patient experience is to create an exceptional experience, not scare the patient away, keep them coming back, and we all know we want them to accept treatment, right? But if you don't get those first three things down, you're never going to get the treatment. Agreed. Trust and rapport are essential. You see, some people that are on the volume treadmill might not believe that, might not do things to promote that. But I'm going to tell you what, when I'm buying something from someone that I don't understand, it's all based on trust. All trust. All right. The first phone call. Yes, we can definitely help you with it. Okay, let's get to the phone call. What up, dental? No, don't answer that way. I'll come back to the verbiage on the phone in the later part of the lecture. What kind of an appointment can I help you with? People ask for different things. There are those that ask for consultations or second opinions, and there are those that have toothaches. We get those people in for a limited exam. And ultimately, from that limited exam, we might do some treatment, but then we try to get them into an 0150 records type of exam. Agreed? That's the next step that follows after the toothache has been taken care of. There are those that ask for an exam and records. We take them through the exam and the records, and ultimately to the prophy, maybe not the same day, but then there are those that ask for a prophy exam and records. How many of you would agree in your practices, the majority of your new patients ask for a cleaning and an exam? That is the number one request of most new patients. That's all they know to ask for unless they're in pain. If we're in pain, we're talking about something different. All right. So, at the exam and records, we go ahead and present the treatment, or we could defer presenting the treatment. Now, if that's a new concept, I hope what I continue to talk about begins to explain that further. At the treatment presentation appointment, we could do that only, or we could do that with treatment. And you'll see as I begin to walk through this process in a very slow manner what all of this means. If we'll predetermine lengths of time for these types of appointments, we will be guaranteed to have the time that we need in order to do this thoroughly, to do it the way that we want to do it. I was in an office a couple of weeks ago doing an appraisal, and I say, how much time do you give for that comp exam, prophy, FMX, photographs, trust building, get to know the patient? She says, well, we do that in about 45 minutes. I don't know about you, but that's not where I want to be. That's not where I want to be. Some of the patients ask for a prophy only. Notice it's a different color. Legally, you can't just provide the treatment. The workaround, if you really want to do it, is, okay, we'll go ahead and do a limited exam at no charge. That's the workaround so that you've seen the patient and you've looked in the mouth. I don't advise it. I'm just telling you how it can be done. By the way, the patient that wants the prophy only, the problem with that, it's the tail wagging the dog. It's the patient telling you how it's going to be. Is that the kind of patient you want? No. Most of you don't want that kind of patient. All right, so let's begin to dissect this records, comp exam, and prophy appointment. This is the one that takes the most time. How long does it take you to do all of this? These are the list of things that are done. Review the forms, take the blood pressure. Some of you might not do that. Get to know the patient and their chief concerns. Assess the periodontal condition. Get to meet the doctor, take photographs, take x-rays, do a prophy or debridement, depending. Oral hygiene instructions, hand off to the doctor, full comprehensive exam, present treatment. How long does it take you guys to do this kind of stuff in a manner that is congruent with the way that you want to show up in your practice? How long? An hour? Hour and a half? Hour and a half? Anybody more? 2.5? I love it. I'm going to tell you the answers. The most common, 90 to 120 minutes for most people. Depends on how graceful you are. Depends on how communicative you are. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Some people are just thinking about getting the job done. To me, that's a very sad state of affairs. Let's just get the job done. No. Yes, sir.
But you're forgetting the most important part of the first exam. Patients want to know about money. That takes 20 minutes for patients to set treatment, which is the number one job we're going to know.
I haven't gotten there yet. This is chair time. This is chair time. And that money part might come after. I agree with you.
But if the patient's
It's a very emotional part of it. We're going to go there. So, how this is broken down in the back is generally that a doctor and assistant may do the records in the exam, and the patient may go over to hygiene, or a doctor and an assistant or a doctor and a hygienist do the whole thing. This is an example of like 2 hours, right? For most people, that's the way it's broken up, either or. The order of these tasks, when I work on this concept with my clients, varies from practice to practice. We customize it. We break it down. How many minutes per? Who are the players? We customize the new patient experience. That's what I mean by it's a system. It's a protocol. It's defined. Let's take the think out of it so that all of our focus can be on what? The patient, not the tasks at hand. So once we decide how we're going to do it, we can then pre-block the proper length of time in the schedule. All right. Now, I told you, some of you came in a little bit later, but what I said to do was enter me into your phone, and I'll send you some things, and this is the first one. I'm about to get into a lot of dialogue that happens in the back office, and if you want, instead of trying to write it all down, you send me a text that says dialogue. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, my name is Scott. I'm a peripheral visionarian. I see into the future. It's only off to the side a little bit. If you'll put me into your phone, I'll give you insight on the future. I've already lost half of you, haven't I? My name is Scott. If you'll put me in your phone right now, 805-492-8107. 805-492-8107. If you'll text the word dialogue to me, I will email you a page. Now, you're going to have to send me your email in that text also. And if you're sending me multiple texts, that's just fine. Yes, sir. 805-492-8107. Now I'll give you another opportunity at the end to remind you of the email part. But right now, if you text the word dialogue. So we're going into the exam right now. My assistant or my hygienist, depending on, in this example right here, this pictorial, we're going to be using the dental assistant. Dental assistant has sat down with the patient, had a conversation to talk about chief concerns. That conversation, in Scott's language, is known as a smile interview. And for those of you who don't know your Latin is, conversation in Latin means smile interview. Okay, maybe it doesn't. I'm just trying to fool you. She sits down, she gets to know the patient's chief concerns, problems, sensitivities, concerns, blah, blah, blah. She takes an FMX, she takes a full series of photographs, and then the doctor comes in, and she hands off to the doctor, hands off the health history information, recent dental information, patient's chief concerns. Doctor sits down, and he begins to talk to the patient. Now we're in the business of trying to build some trust, build some rapport, right? So it doesn't start out with, what's on your mind, what are your concerns? It starts out a little slower than that. Look, no gloves, no mask, no barriers. Slow down a little bit. Schedule it the right way, and you're guaranteed to have the time that you want. And by the way, if you do every one of them this way, you'll develop a rhythm, and you'll get into a groove, just like you are with Prep and Crowns right now. Same way every time. Tell me about yourself. Don't. Where'd you grow up? If you don't like where'd you grow up, leave that part out. But two basic ones. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your dental background. Tell me about your dental journey. I'm telling you what, everybody got a dental story. And they want to tell you that dental story. But you have to give them a moment to tell you. And a beautiful thing about you telling me your dental story is that I begin to find out what your concerns are, who you're blaming, why you didn't get it done, what you've done, whether he believes in preventive care or not. It's not a guarantee, but you'd be surprised. How many of you experienced it? Once you let the patient start talking, ooh, you learn a lot. You learn a lot. Let's continue. Luis, so tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is your oral health? And he says?
A 10.
A 10. And tell me, where do you think you are right now?
An 8.
You're an 8. What can I do to help you get there? And you don't have to answer that one. But when the number's really low, 4, 5, 6, there's a big gap there. What I do when I ask the question, where on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is your oral health? They begin to tell me. By the way, another question that was asked on the telephone, when was your last visit to the dentist? When were your last x-rays? When was your last prophy? When somebody says it's been 7 years, that tells me a lot about the value of dental care in their life. Dentistry generally does not rank as a budget line item for personal budgets. People believe in paying for what before they pay for dentistry regularly? Cable and cell phones. That's far more important, don't you know? Okay, maybe not. I got to remember where I am, right? How can I help you get there? No gloves, no mask, no barriers. Wheels around to the monitor, and the assistant's clicking the pictures. Go slow, listen carefully. There are questions. What do you see? What would you like to see? What's important to you? Have you given any thought to a budget for your dental care? Have you given any thought to the timing that might be necessary to take care of these things? We haven't diagnosed anything yet. Be careful. Then let me go a little bit further. Is there any uncompleted treatment from your last dentist? Does this bother you? What happened here? Has this gotten worse? You see, a very objective series of questions about what the photographs show. What's happening over here with my guy as I talk to him? Let's talk about something that might be a little cosmetic. How about a diastema? How long have you had that? All your life. And now listen, I got to be very careful because I might just put my foot right in my mouth if I'm not careful. You know, what's your first name? Alex? You know, Alex, I have some patients that love diastemas, gives them character, gives them personality. Let me start there on the positive trail, right? And I have other patients that don't really like that. I have some patients that it's developed because they didn't wear their retainers. How do you feel about that? You're fine with it. I'm done. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to try to fix what isn't broken. What I'm trying to do is assess the situation. I say, what happened here? He said, well, it broke a long time ago and I had the filling placed, or that it's gotten worse. What about anterior chipping? That's a good example. Have you noticed this has gotten worse? Let's go down the apnea trail, right? Lower wear. Has this gotten worse? Let me ask questions. Let me find out before I start letting anything come out of my mouth. I'm not talking about, listen carefully, what you need, what you should have. Those are bad words in dentistry, guys. Need and should, better stay away from those. I'm going to tell you a true story. This happened last week. This lady, she was so bold. I loved it. She says out loud to a group of people, she goes, I don't like it when people tell me what I need or what I should do. Who are you to know what I need or should do? How do you know what's best for me? I'm like, yes, sister, that's what I'm talking about. Don't you think there are other people in the world? It's kind of repelling when somebody tells me what I need to do or what I should do. You need a root canal in this tooth or you're going to possibly... How do you know that's not on my bucket list? How dare you deprive me of a broken tooth? How about we ask better questions and stop making people feel like we're jamming a diagnosis down their throat? You don't know what's best for me. I know what's best for me. So I think. You may know, but do you want me to hear your message? Or do you want me to be repelled by your message? And I would say to you, if you're telling people what they need or what they should do, you could be in a position where some people are they're bristling. Some bristle. Is there anybody in the room that feels that way when you're told what you need to do or what you should do? Are you the employee? Or are you the doctor? The one not with the glasses. You're the doctor, okay. I bet your employees feel that way when you say what you need to do or what you should do. No, I'm kidding. All right, so we're asking questions, very objective questions to find out where the patient is coming from. All right? Why'd you choose this material? How many of you have amalgam in your mouths? Why did you choose amalgam? Right there. That's what my patient needs to hear himself say. I didn't choose it. But today you're the decision maker. With great pride, he says yes. Nobody's going to tell me. The dentist chose it. Mom chose it. Dad chose it. I didn't get a vote. See, I want him to know that it's different. You choose today. Were there any other options offered? Has this changed or gotten worse? You see what I'm doing? Objective questions. All right. Alex, we're going to go ahead and begin with a more clinical exam now. We're going to take a much closer look. My dental assistant and I, we speak dental. I'm going to use some terminology you may not understand. Don't worry about that. I'll go over everything with you. As I am calling out existing, I may use words. As I talk about current conditions, I will use words. As I call out I say preliminary diagnosis, it may turn out to be my final diagnosis, but I'm using the word preliminary with you because I'm going to reserve the right to change it. You do reserve the right to change it. So as I call out my diagnosis, I will not use words. That's why I said we speak dental. I'm going to use some letters and some numbers that might not make a lot of sense. I'll explain everything. But I talk about MOs and MODs and DOs and PFMs and CCs, and I use letters and numbers. But I don't use words because I don't want my patient to, especially, by the way, back here looking at the pictures, how many of you already know pretty much what you're dealing with? you have a pretty good idea, right? Maybe you've looked at the x-rays too. I'm suggesting refrain from letting the diagnosis spill out of your mouth too quickly as we're gathering information. So I call those things out. And I go ahead and tell the patient for the smaller treatment plans what they need. I'll dismiss them to the front so they can review the fees, and we can get their appointment scheduled. This is for smaller. Now let's break this up. What is a lot? What is larger constitute? Your definition of large and the patient's definition of large could be very different, right? I'm in an office the other day and I look at the doctor, I say, when does a small treatment plan become a large treatment plan? You know what his answer was? About 60,000. Now some of you are like, 60,000, that's huge. 10's big for me. It's relative. And I'm not talking about you. This isn't what you think. Listen, this guy over here, it's relative to the money he has in the bank, the value of dentistry that it is in his life, whether he's ready to do something about it, whether he knows that it's going on. It's relative. I'm going to tell you statistically, based on the practices that I work in, that $4,000 to $5,000 is the tipping point for most people. And some people, 2 is a lot. It's all relevant to the patient. Do you understand what I'm doing back at the pictures now? When I'm reviewing the pictures with the patient and I'm asking questions, they start giving me signals and they say things like, well, I didn't get that done because my insurance didn't cover it. I didn't get that done because I didn't have the money for it. That wasn't that important to me. You see, as people begin making those kinds of comments, I begin to get a general assessment, and it's what I call a read. I get a read on the patient. But for the larger treatment plans, I know I was going to ask you, larger. How large is large? Be careful. Let's just go with 4 or 5. What percentage of your patients that are new come in with larger treatment plans? 20%? 10%? 30%? It's not most. Most have less. I'm telling you guys, you've done yourself a big disservice. This whole fluoride thing and preventive dentistry, it's killing you. It's just killing you. Slow down. Ask a few more questions. Questions that are going to influence the design of the treatment plan. Are you open to me helping you develop a plan to get your mouth healthier, keep your costs down, keep you out of pain? Are you interested in materials that are going to last longer or be more economical? Are you concerned about them being natural looking, or is metal okay? If we can save you time by doing more dentistry per appointment and reduce the number of appointments, would that help you? You see, people are very concerned about time, just as they are concerned about money. And I know a lot of people, and I'm including myself in this, I'm more concerned about time than I am money. It doesn't mean I'm wealthy. It means that my time means a lot to me. And if we could do 2 crowns in 2 visits instead of 2 crowns in 4 visits, that saves me time. And you guys, your hearts are beating faster and your salivary glands are flowing because you want to do as much dentistry as you can per appointment. When I say quadrant dentistry, I don't mean yank things that don't need to be yanked. I'm just talking about that which needs to be done. You're the architect, you decide. If there's anything that we could do to change the appearance of your teeth, what would that be? Are there any health issues or life issues that are going on that I need to be aware of that could impact the plan? You don't want to get to a treatment presentation appointment and then find out, got a big wedding coming up and I'm going to be spending a lot of money on this, and so I'm going to have to wait. Ooh, that'll put a lump in your throat. Here are the 7, this is a consolidated view of those extended dialogue. Remember, text me the word dialogue and I can send all that to you. Chief concerns, open to a plan, concerned about longevity of materials. What do you want it to look like? Are you interested in saving time? Are there any cosmetic aspects of the treatment plan? Any health or life issues? Health or life issues are real life issues. What if the patient's going through chemo? What if the patient's about to have a baby? What if the patient's getting married? What if the patient's getting a divorce? People that are getting divorces, they're coming back on the market. I'm telling you what, they're big money for cosmetics. Sorry if you're going through a divorce. Please keep this in mind. While these questions are being asked, here's the most important thing of what I'm telling you. Where is it being documented? You can ask all these questions. Do you think you're going to remember all the answers? I seriously doubt it. You see what she's doing? She's writing or she's typing. You're going to need this information come treatment presentation time. Unless, of course, you don't care how you show up.
Can you have that at the, when they're filling out the forms? Could these questions be asked at the time that they're filling out the forms, so you already have it already written? Or
I would not do that. I would do it orally, because what it does is that it goes deeper in this conversation that demonstrates how interested you are and allows you to connect with me differently. The connection, guys, that's what builds trust and rapport, is the connection between people. And people that just gloss through this stuff and present big treatment plans, they've missed the most important part of it. And if people don't feel the connection, you know, I know this. You know why I know this? Because I sell an intangible also. Yours is somewhat intangible, but more tangible than mine is. Mine is advice. If there's not trust, if there's not rapport, if there's not true understanding and connection, why would they buy? All right. Now, let me slow this car down a little bit. Let me buy myself some time. Instead of allowing the treatment plan to spew out of my mouth, let me do something different on the larger ones. In order to properly develop your plan, I'm going to need one more record, Luis. I'm going to need a three-dimensional view of your teeth. We're going to take some impressions today, and there's not going to be any charge for you. You like free? How many of you like free? How many of you think your patients like free? Plaster's cheap. Impression material isn't that expensive. I'm not talking about mounted NCR. I'm not talking about Facebook. And if it was a case that needed that level, then you're going to charge for that. Then you're going to talk about that fee with the patient. There might be another record that you need. And so I'll order that. Either I do that in my office or I refer the patient out to someone else. By the way, if you haven't figured out yet, I'm not a doctor. He introduced me as doctor. Thank you very much. I love that. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. I've just done this long enough to know what I'm talking about. I know the clinical side well enough to carry that conversation with you, but okay, give me a handpiece. I'll bet I could do a pretty good job, but I know you wouldn't volunteer for it. After I get the models back, I'm going to very carefully sit down and review all of your records, and I'm going to customize a plan for you, Luis, that addresses both of our concerns, and I'm going to divide it up into phases, and we'll have you come back and we'll go over everything, and then we'll move forward at a pace that's comfortable for you. How's that sound? How does that sound? Most people are going to say, that sounds reasonable. Now, let's say Joe over here, he's like, I want to know now. I'm going to tell you what, there's something unusual about that. Most people will not back you into a corner. I have already substantiated why I can't. I'm good, Joe, but I'm not so good that I'm going to try to tell you right now. I need one more record. That's like you needed to go to the doctor and you got to have some blood work done. And you look at your doctor and say, well, do I have it? He says, well, I don't know. We got to get your labs back. And you're like, I don't care about those labs. I want to know now. He's like, look, sister, I don't know if you're going to die until I get the labs back. Be patient. If you're going to be doing a lot of dentistry on someone, I'm telling you, I'm the kind of guy, and you're probably the kind of people, that you would want well thought out, well organized. Don't treatment plan on the fly. Don't put yourself under that kind of pressure. Why? You've been there. You've all been there. Got to tell them right now. Slow down. Rationalize it. I need one more record. By the way, if it was a CT you needed, you would certainly be able to say, I need the CT. I can't tell you. You do the same thing with study models. So when you come back, Luis, would you be more comfortable getting started with some treatment, or would you prefer to simply go over everything?
It depends.
Now, I can satisfy both answers. If my patient is the kind of patient, by the way, just for demonstration here, how many of you are the kinds of people that if you know, we're going through these pictures and I'm pointing to the teeth and I'm saying we're going to need some treatment here. I'm concerned about this. You're going to need treatment here. I'm not telling you definitively what it needs, but I'm certainly pointing out my concerns and I'm being clear about what's going to need treatment. You know it's not one tooth. You need a fair amount of treatment. How many of you are the kind of people that if I said, would you prefer to come back and simply go over everything, or would you like to get started with something at the same time? How many of you are the kind of people that are so time conscious that if you're going to come back, you want to get started with something at the same time? Raise your hands. How many of you are the kind of people that just want to hear everything first? Well, it appears as though most of you aren't coming back at all. I can satisfy both camps. That's important. Let the patient lead. Pull them in. This isn't hard sell. Have I said anything that sounds hard sell yet? I hope not. If I have, maybe I misspoke. All right. Now, your job is to design the treatment plan. And my job would be to let you take a break if we had time. You're the architect of the plan. You're responsible for the development of that plan. We're going to download, crop, and print pictures for the larger treatment plans. We're going to pour and trim the study models for your dental assistants. Please explain how dearly you hate bubbles in plaster models. They still happen, don't they? No, that's not a bubble. That's just a new form of decay that just developed since the last time you were here. You sit down and review all of the records to revise the treatment plan and to organize it into phases. This is a Dentrix example. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Depends on your computer system and how that looks. Please keep in mind it's a lot easier to change a treatment plan before it's presented. It's a lot shiftier if you do it after. If you've told me that we're going to do an MOD filling on a tooth and then you sit down with me and tell me we're going to do a crown, I'm telling you what, there he goes. He's sticking it to me. Luis, he's a shifty guy. Think about what I'm saying. How many of you, upon further examination with study models and a second look at the records, would probably tweak the treatment plan? Raise your hands. Some of you just aren't going to raise your hands today. Most doctors that I talk to will modify. I'm not telling you to modify. I'm telling you that a second look does wonders. So now it's time to have the patient back. I will continue with this word dialogue. We're going to talk about treatment presentation now. So, the first impression of all of this new patient experience concludes when you present the treatment. Not necessarily that day. In this case, a subsequent appointment. But people can be easily overwhelmed. We have to be very conscientious of this. Have the records that you have taken and be prepared for this treatment presentation appointment. Have a place where you can do this, preferably in a consult room or a doctor's office that's cleared out if possible. Worst case scenario, you're in a treatment room, but I would say if you have any other option, avoid that, because that's where you stick people with needles and there's some kind of association there for some people. So have all the records that you need from the patient. Have visual aids at an arm's length that can help communicate points that you want to make during this treatment presentation appointment. By the way, what is a dental implant? Nobody here knows what a dental implant is? And I'm telling you what, if it's a screw, don't let any of your employees say that. Oh, it's a titanium screw. And we're going to jam it into your jawbone. And we use a big old screwdriver. It's a natural, it's a root substitute. It's a root. It's a substitute root. Call it what you want, but don't call it a screw. Root replacement. We're here today, Luis, to review the plan that we discussed at your last appointment. The good news is that we have a clear plan now. We gathered a lot of information, and I've customized a plan to help you with the things that you talked to me about. You said to me that you wanted to save some time. You said to me you wanted to develop a plan to help you keep your costs down, to keep your teeth as long as possible, to get healthier. And so the good news is we have that plan today. Is it okay for me to go over all that with you today? All right. So, like I said, I've designed the plan and I've broken it up into phases, and we'll talk about everything today so that you have a big picture idea of what we're dealing with here. And then Veronica will go over the fees with you and the insurance estimates. And we're going to answer all of your questions, and then we'll proceed at a pace that you're comfortable with. Does that sound high pressure? Any of that sound high pressure? I hope not. Now is the time that we're going to get into start talking about what he wanted and his dominant emotional motives. Now, for people that have lost things, Bruce, in your practice, when people come to you and they need extensive care, what have they lost?
Motivation to take care of themselves.
Self-esteem, motivation to care for themselves, health,
Most,
function. Some can't sleep, trust in the system. They're embarrassed, they're ashamed. There are a lot of things that people have lost. So I start to key off of all of those answers of the things that you said that, this is what I started out with a moment ago. You said that you were interested in me helping you with blah, 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 blah. You told me that you were interested in blah, 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 blah. In the interest of time, I'm not giving you that example right now. Whiter teeth, pain on the lower left. You didn't like, let's go back to this picture right here. This is the patient, and this is her case. 25 years old. Here's what I would say to her. Stephanie, when you and I were talking at your first visit, you were talking to me about how embarrassed you were about your front teeth. You didn't like it, you don't smile as much, you cover up your mouth. Whatever it is that the patient said, right? So, did I ask the right questions, and did we document those answers? That's really important. Now that piece of paper my assistant was filling out, or the notes that she was taking in the computer. You guys, you got to have your assistant or your hygienist in the room documenting while you're talking. They've got to be dialed in. Go back. If they don't know this, you tell them, God gave you two of these ears and one of these mouths for a reason. You got to be listening to the conversation. You got to be documenting. It's going to be real important that you key off of those answers, or otherwise it doesn't sound like you listened. And you better get it right, too. Don't make stuff up. We're going to talk about conditions, consequences, and solutions. What's wrong with the tooth? Not you have a broken tooth, Luis. Tooth number 29 has a crack in it. In order to solve that problem, we need to do a crown on the tooth. The problem with waiting too long is that if you're lucky and it breaks just right, we might be able to save the tooth with a root canal buildup and a crown, but if it breaks just wrong, you might lose the tooth entirely, and now we're talking about a dental implant. I talk about the condition, the solutions. I say solutions plurally because we know we're supposed to give them multiple options, right? What's option number one? Do nothing. Problem with doing nothing is blah, blah, blah. Explain the pros and cons of treatment options. Tell them what you would do. Now listen, I talk about these things with the patient. You got to guide them. Remember, they're the sheep, you're the shepherd. You got to guide them. This is what I would do. This is what I recommend. This is what I did on my son. This is what I did on my dental assistant. That's enough right there for most people. I was talking to a doctor one time, and I said, he's telling me all these options, and I'm like, dude, just tell me what you would do if it was your mouth, or your whatever we were talking about. This is what I would do. I'm like, all right, that's the way we're going. That's what you would do. Most people want to know what you would do. Keep the focus on the treatment, not the cost. All right. Now we get to the end. By the way, how much time should you be in there for this? Joe, how much time should you be in there to talk about a $12,000 case? For your part, the clinical part. I'm going to tell you 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You guys, come on, barring an interdisciplinary case, you really only do about 3 things. Hygiene, fillings, and crowns. And I can talk myself in a circle and unsell the dentistry. I'm going to talk about decay. I'm going to talk about pathology of some sort or another. I'm going to talk about solutions. But less is more. Less is more. Now, maybe the whole appointment is going to take about 30 minutes. You start talking about an interdisciplinary case that has Dr. Amin involved, that's another story, right? That becomes more complex. So, I'm beginning to transition out now. Now, but I also want to try to do more if I can, right? How many of you would prefer to do half mouth or full arch, or better yet, all of it at once? Well, some of you might want that. So I'm going to give that patient the opportunity. If time's a concern, we can always combine these phases and do more dentistry. You know, we can come in on a Friday and we won't see anybody else, make them feel special. Give them that chance. They won't ask for it, but they might want it. So aside from cost, Luis, are there any other questions that you have regarding the clinical aspects of the treatment that's needed? And he says what he says. And I answer those questions. Now maybe he's got a good poker face, and I say, do you have any concerns that I need to be aware of? Somebody that has a good poker face, they're not letting on anything. So I say, do you have any concerns that I need to be aware of? Because as a doctor, you're wanting to know, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Are they going to accept? They're not nodding one way or the other. There's no facial expression. Where are they? Do you have any concerns? And he says, what? How much is it going to cost? I say, that's a great question. That's why Veronica's here with me. She's going to go over all that with you. I don't do that anymore. One time I let her do the dentistry and I talked about the money. It was ugly. Ugly. So I would recommend that you begin with phase 1, as we've talked about. We need to get that deep cleaning taken care of and get your gums healthier, get your periodontal condition under control. And Veronica, would you please make sure that he's also scheduled for his 3-month periodontal maintenance appointment after those appointments? Doctors, you don't know at this point whether the patient's going to proceed with accepting phase 1 of your treatment plan, but don't make them feel like they have to buy it all. People don't want to be sold the whole bill of goods at one time. That's not what this is about at all. This is about informing them, breaking it up into phases, attempting to close on the first phase, but even if that doesn't happen, I want this guy to know that I still expect to see him again. So Veronica, at a minimum, would you please make sure that he's scheduled for his next cleaning appointment in blank number of months? And if he doesn't proceed, he still thinks that I think I'm going to see him again. And it's okay if he doesn't proceed, because if he'll wait a little bit longer on some of those restorations, you'll be spending more money with me if you come back. So, leave before you say too much. As the doctor said, now this is the treatment coordinator or the financial coordinator taking over. As the doctor said, I've broken up your treatment plan into phases. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to go over everything so that you can begin to plan and budget appropriately. Please understand, Luis, it is not necessary for you to make a decision right now about doing all of this at once. I literally say it. Please understand, it's not important that you make a decision today about doing all of this at once. I am diffusing that pressure that one might feel. Let's go ahead and go over it, and if you're comfortable, we can get started with the first phase. So I pull out the treatment plan, patient signs the treatment plan, we talk about the fees, we talk about the insurance. Now let me get into one more specific that I told you I was coming back to. You need me to go back? All right, so I've got my treatment plan up there. I'm telling you what, guys, don't get into all of this line item, procedure by procedure, patient portion, insurance portion, patient portion, insurance portion. You got 15 teeth on there, and all it gets so confusing, and it's so irrelevant anyway. Oh, it's relevant, but it's irrelevant. You know why it's irrelevant? Let's just cut to the chase real quick. You got about $600 left on your coupon this year. I'm sorry, I said it again, didn't I? You got about $600 left remaining this year, and you got about another $1,000 left for next year. By the way, September's okay to start talking about rolling in. Don't be doing this in February. You got about $600 left this year, you got $1,000 for next year, and your part's going to be about $7,400. We're going to maximize your insurance and get every dime out of it. How many of you would agree that your treatment coordinators, financial insurance coordinators, whatever you call them, they're going to squeeze that insurance company and get every dime? How many of you would agree with that? You're going to work that system to the max. It's not hard to max out. So, cut to the chase real quick and easy. Then when we get to the point where we're making financial arrangements on one phase of it at a time, then we'll get into the details. You follow me? It's not time to close on the whole thing. It's time to give them a big picture idea. Why do I think that this is a better way to go? Because I've been in dentistry long enough to know that there are people that come back to the dentist over and over again, and every time I see Alex, he finds something else. Every time I come back, he finds something else. Back that truck up a minute. Why don't we give them a big picture idea of what's going on right now? Now, you wait too long, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to turn into something else. Think about that for a moment. If it was your mouth, wouldn't you want to know? Let's get an idea of the big picture and what's going on. I would appreciate and value somebody that takes the time to look at it comprehensively, taking into consideration cosmetics and occlusion and vertical dimension and pathology and this and apnea and whatever else it is. Let's look at the big picture. You're not trying to sell it. You're trying to open the dialogue of communication. At the bottom, on the signature clause, some of these standardized signature clauses can be changed. Most of them can be changed. Why are people reluctant to sign treatment plans? Nobody here's ever had a patient that's reluctant to sign a treatment plan. Nobody's had a patient sign a treatment plan. That's exactly right. They think they're committing, right? So look what mine says at the bottom. I've been informed of the current conditions, treatment recommendations, options, and consequences of neglecting treatment. By signing below, I acknowledge that I have been informed, and this is not an agreement to proceed with treatment. CYA. Get a signature. Stop the battle before it even begins. The signing part. All right, we've done that. That's easy. Now what are we going to do next? Patient signs the treatment plan. So as Dr. Drillin said, by the way, his initials are IB. As Dr. IB Drillin said, we should probably get started with phase 1 first. If you're comfortable, we can go ahead and proceed. And the patient gives you that beautiful poker face. And you're like, we could go ahead and proceed. And this is when you start sweating. Your treatment coordinators, they're perspiring. What do I do now? It's real simple, guys. How would you like to proceed? How would you be comfortable proceeding? Ask a direct question that is not high pressure. How would you be comfortable proceeding? And you'll get an answer. And if it involves waiting, you better accept that. Just because they're waiting doesn't mean the answer is no. Fill the pipeline. Build a relationship. Get them back for the prophy. Maybe they need to come back one more time before they start feeling like they can trust you a little bit. But if we haven't created a high pressure, high sale, hurry kind of experience, you may be closer to getting yes than you realize. Would you like us to pre-qualify you for some outside financing? So I review one financial option at a time, and I go ahead and sign the financial paperwork on whatever that arrangement is, cash, check, or chickens, and they agree. And it's yet another opportunity for me to talk to my patient about my policy on making appointments. I'm telling you what, the broken appointment problem is so pandemic right now. Here's a suggestion. Every time your appointment, treatment, financial coordinators, any employee is scheduling, especially a highly productive appointment, I say, Luis, are you aware of our appointment policy? Alex, are you aware of our appointment policy? Bruce, are you aware of the appointment policy? I ask them all. And whether they say yes or whether they say no, if they say yes, I say, so you're aware that we do require 48-hour notice for appointment changes? Or there could be a charge. Doesn't mean I'm going to charge. If he says no, I say, we do require 48-hour notice for appointment changes. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. You got to talk about it, or it's not on the forefront of their minds. It doesn't guarantee they're not going to break their appointment. But if you haven't talked about it, you haven't done your part. So I send the patient home with a clearly organized plan in a folder, printed photographs. Study casts are in her left hand. You can't see those. The new patient experience. Standardize your new patient protocol. Prevent distractions. You should be uninterrupted during your exam. You should be uninterrupted during treatment presentation. heard and understood. Discuss money in a private place and follow up with a thank you card or a care call to make sure that their questions were answered. Do your patients want to return to the new patient experience that you're creating for them right now? Could your new patient experience be any better? So, make it an exceptional experience. All right, a business plan continues with strategic patient communication skills. We communicate as human beings in 3 different ways predominantly. 7% of our communication is with the words that we use. If I did not have this on and all you were doing was hearing me, more than those that are would be falling asleep. More than those that are. That would imply some of you are asleep. Wait, did I say that out loud? Right, doctor? Yeah. Words. Yes, words, we think words are the most important way we communicate, but they're really not. It's only 7%. Let's go back to you, specifically with your patients. Words that describe conditions, solutions, and consequences. 38% of our communication is the tone and the pace at which we speak. Sometimes people can talk in a too passive, too soft, too slow, or too condescending, too fast, too harried, too many adjectives, too much. Dr. Weiner, oh my gosh. 5:30 in the morning, when can we talk? I say, dude, we can talk for 10 minutes. You better have your questions written down in advance because I don't have an hour to listen to you complain. I have to talk to Dr. Weiner about his biggest problem, talking too much. Sometimes we need to slow down for certain patients. Sometimes we need to speed up. I just started with a new practice yesterday, and the doctor's wife, she's got a very dominant director-style personality. Fast, fast, fast. I want it now. I don't want to take the whole meeting to talk about them getting to know you. I want to talk about the huddle meetings. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, I know you want the whole program in one meeting. I got it. Most of the world's not like that. Especially people that are sitting in your chair and don't really understand. People that are sitting in your chair and they're afraid. They're afraid of bad news. They're afraid of the cost. They're afraid of being inconvenienced. We better go at their pace. That's why the read and getting to know somebody that's new with you is important. If you're seeing patients of record, you need to understand their style. This isn't about what you like. This isn't about how you are. This is moving at a pace that is more comfortable for them so that we're more effective in our communication. Our tone and our pace as a society has changed. I'm standing in line over here getting coffee this morning, and the guy in front of me, he turns to me and he goes, kind of slow, aren't they? I said, everybody's slow these days. We're running short on patience in our world today. And I looked at him and I said, this is one of the biggest reasons why we've become so impatient. We want it fast, we want it now. Look it up. Oh my gosh, the internet's down. What am I going to do? We have become so impatient with one another. Slow down. The tone, the pace. Back in the days, let's drop back 60, 50 years ago, black and white television. There used to be black and white television. I remember that as a kid. The Andy Griffith Show. Now, Peter, you're in the industry. He understands this. By the way, my guys over here, Peter and Scott, they do videography stuff. They're fabulous at what they do. Video content, I'll talk about this again in a little bit. Video content on your website, very important stuff. You want to learn more? Talk to them. They do some other stuff on the side. But Peter understands this. Years ago, back in that day, the camera would pan in the scenes, and I've done this. I've clocked those scenes 11, 12 seconds before any change in the scene. 11 or 12 seconds. Man, you turn on television today, and you have a scene change in 1 second. And if you're not careful, you can miss it. I turn away, I turn back, I'm like, what happened? I look at my wife, what happened? We're fast. But fast in the dental chair is not where you need to be fast. Maybe fast with your preps, but not fast at communicating with people. Be attentive to the tone and the pace. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry, your first name again was what? Crystal? I'm sorry to tell you, the tooth has a fracture. You're going to have a crown. Sorry. Sorry. The good news is we can save the tooth, the tone, the excitement. Now, I know you're excited to do a crown prep, but don't make her think that. The excitement is that we can save the tooth. Most of communication, yes, sir.
Are you recommending the treatment before you tell her the consequences of it? Or are you...
No, I was just using that as an example. At the right time in the sequence. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. 55% of communication is what we see. Photography is essential in dental photography. Let me come back to that in a moment. By the way, Crystal, we've got your tooth cleaned out now. And you see these lines right here? When this thing starts hurting you, it's not because I'm a bad dentist. That says it all. Now, for you dentists, I know you know what I'm talking about. But let's talk about the verbal toolbox. Let's go back to words for just a moment. We'll come back to photography also. The behavioral art and science of dentistry requires strong interpersonal and humanitarian sensitivity in order to maximize potential patient care. Sensitivity, interpersonal communication. My buddy Nick, Peter knows Nick. Nick sends me a picture and he says, "Let me show you this toolbox I got, man. It's great." He goes, "I got this thing for half price, $8,000. I'm like, "What? You telling me that toolbox is 16 grand? He goes, "Yeah, I got it for half price because there's a dent on the side." I'm like, "Dude, you're going to spend $8,000 on a toolbox. You got to show me what's in it." I got some dentists who want to know about that. This is what he sends me pictures of. You see, he's got 20 hammers in this drawer right here. His verbal toolbox, his mechanical toolbox. His is mechanical, yours is verbal. Why is this important? People need and or want dentistry. You have an ability to provide dentistry. Everything in the middle is communication. Everything is communication. For you, it's the verbal. I know you guys are thinking, my crown preps and implant placement and no. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about what we need to have as a solid part of our business plan, and that is communication skills. You see, he turns this damaged Ferrari hood into the bottom picture with the right hammers and the right heat. And he turns the tail end of this Mustang into this restored Mustang with hammers and heat. It's the art of what he does, like the art of dentistry. But in order to do the dentistry that people need or want, my question for you is, how prepared are you with your verbal toolbox? When I got into dentistry, this is what my verbal toolbox looked like. And today, it's a lot bigger. And I've had a lot of people that have said to me, "Scott, I just want to hire you to present the treatment plans." I'm like, "You can't afford me, dude." I have people come to me and say, "I want you to speak in front of this group of people. I want you to give the eulogy. I want you to do this." They're like, "I love the way you speak. It's like you pull words out of your head. Use a different word there. That's because I talk for a living. But all you got to do is practice. All you got to do is practice. How prepared are you when the employee comes to you and they're upset because they didn't get paid for Labor Day? Well, not Labor Day. Let's use Christmas Day because it was on Sunday. How prepared are you when you got two employees in the middle of a cat fight and they're looking at you going, "Come on." How prepared are you for the patient that doesn't understand? How prepared are you for the patient that cancels their appointment? How prepared are you when you talk about our broken appointment policy, if you talk about a broken appointment policy? How prepared are you dealing with employees, with treatment presentation, with conversations to build trust and rapport, with conversations to reprimand or deal with a difficult employee, with conversations about appraising and commending employees? How prepared are you when you go home today and your spouse says, "Did you ... It's all about the art of verbal communication. And as we get a little older in life, we learn to realize that sometimes the best words are no words. Sometimes the best words are fewer words. It's called wisdom, too. Patient education continues with being prepared, not only with a verbal toolbox, but the verbal toolbox that is well prepared to talk about what comes with the 55% now. Photography is huge in dentistry. I can take this series of pictures by myself in about 6 minutes. Check-up pictures, 4 quads and a lower lingual, 1 minute. What do we take pictures of? We take pictures when the patients are new. We take pictures when there's uncompleted treatment. We take pictures when there are new problems. We take pictures when there's anything unusual to see. We take pictures for the lab. We take pictures for the specialist. We take pictures any time the assistant or the hygienist thinks, I think the doctor's going to want to see this. And most of all, I take pictures anytime I want the patient to see what I see. How many of you have ever seen down your own throat? How many of you have ever seen inside of your own ear canal? How many of you have ever seen up your own, Cameras do wonderful things. And patients often have a blind mind's eye when it comes to what's going on in their mouth, and we're relying on our words. Pictures should be taken as routinely as x-rays. Full series of photographs. This is my definition of a full series. For those of you who are AACD people, it's more. That's up to you. That's not up to me. Some people want lateral views. Some people don't. But a full series taken every 2 years, just like you would take an FMX every 3 to 5. Check-up pictures taken every year, just like you would take bite wings every year. And additional photographs taken just as much as they're needed, just like PAs. The mind cannot understand what the eye cannot see. My philosophy of photography was influenced by Frank Spears long, long ago. I know you know it's important. If you don't have a camera, you're way behind. You're struggling. You're missing opportunity to communicate. The next issue is what kind of camera? Are we going digital? Are we going intraoral? How many teeth are we showing? These are all different conversations for a different point in time. But different cameras have different places in your practice, just like different burrs do. Yep, it takes time. There's a camp of people that don't want to take pictures. They don't take pictures well. It's too hard. It's too heavy. It's too complicated. We don't have this. We don't have that. The problem is, you know what those employees are called? Unwilling. Unwilling. If you got somebody on your team that is unwilling to take photographs, you got the wrong somebody on your team. Because in order to improve case acceptance, we have to have players. Your business is way too small to have room for that kind of attitude. You see how it's coming together? We have to have players on our team that are trying to run that ball down the yard line. Okay, nobody will run it down the yard line as hard as you do. If you're married, she might. But if you're not married, she might not. Until you get married. Nobody works harder in my business than me. Nobody works harder in your business, Joe, than you. And there are some people that work very hard, and they're hard to find. And there's some people that don't work hard enough, and I question, why are they even on your team? There's not a lot of room for, I don't want to do that. It's not that expensive to take photographs, but I'm going to tell you what, the price you pay for not doing it is huge, huge, huge. We got to be committed, we got to be willing, we got to get trained, we got to practice, and we got to be patient with ourselves when it comes to photography. And I've seen people, they struggle, they take bad pictures. I say, don't worry about it. You got to take 719 bad pictures before you start to get some good ones. And they're like, really? I'm like, just keep on trying. Patient education continues with being well prepared with our verbal skills. Not just words, but now questions. The art of asking questions. We have to combat dental amnesia, and people get pretty forgetful. Can I ask somebody back there to bring me some water? Can you bring me a cup of water, please? Thank you, sir. People become very forgetful in the dental chair, don't they? So we need to tickle the memory with questions. We need to ask questions to identify problems, sensitivities, concerns. We need to ask what I call magnification questions to learn more about that which has been identified. How often? When? Has it kept you up at night? How severe is the pain? Describe the pain for me. We have to ask, thank you, sir, so much. We have to ask questions about uncompleted treatment. I'm sure most of you would lose your mind if you have a dental assistant or a hygienist who does not bother to mention that which has already been diagnosed and uncompleted before you come into the room. Wait a minute, is that in your verbal toolbox? Is that in your wheelhouse, that they should do that first? And how do they ask? You see, the way you ask about uncompleted treatment is not to say, Crystal, are you ready? I see, Crystal, that you have a couple of crowns that were diagnosed last year. Do you have any particular concerns about having that treatment completed? Let me gently and appropriately remind her without creating pressure. I got a number of those in my toolbox. We can talk about that later if you want to learn more. For those of you who are here, if you have more specific questions for me, I'm going to be here all weekend and speaking tomorrow too. I can't talk to you when I'm speaking, but I'll be happy to come see me and talk to me about very specific questions or whatever you've got. Questions about elective dentistry, questions about fixed versus removable, questions about keeping long-term costs down, questions about the consequences of not completing treatment. Did the doctor explain to you, Alex, what could happen if treatment is put off for too long? Not, do you know what can happen if you wait too long? See, those personal pronouns can become highly offensive to people if we use them incorrectly. Why would I say that? Do you know what can happen if you wait too long? I know I put some voice inflection on that too, but let's just eliminate that. Did the doctor talk to you about what could happen if treatment is put off for too long? Isn't that softer? That's less judgmental. I'm not pointing. Do you want people to receive your message, or do you want them to be, eliminate the bristling that can, you don't ever know. And since you don't know, it's safer to avoid the use of certain words. And the art of asking questions is about also knowing when to stop. He was 6 years old. I picked him up at school one day. I say, Chandler, how was your day? He says, good. I say, what'd you learn today? I don't know. I said, well, what did my $50 get you? I don't know. Why are you asking so many questions? I said, because I'm your dad and I care. He's 20 years old today. I send him a message. He's away at college, at flight school. I say, dude, I really miss you. You know what I got back? Nothing. He's a man of few words. Questioning for that personality. Are you seeing a pattern here? Doesn't talk very much. He's a pilot. He's not one of those jabberjaw people. He's not a socializer. They don't talk very much. They get annoyed. And he still gets annoyed. I got 2 questions with this kid. How are you? Can I feed you? A team that is trained to look, to confirm today's treatment, to follow up on uncompleted treatment, to address any other concerns or symptoms that might be there, to demonstrate care and concern. This is what spills out of the mouths of trained people so that the patients feel the love from the entire team, not just from you. Let's put this all together in terms of what team patient education is. Again, what I call the smile interview. An assistant or hygienist who seats the patient and asks questions, takes time to look in the mouth, takes time to take necessary photographs or radiographs, communicates concern when concern is there to be communicated. Communicating concern prepares people for a diagnosis that may be forthcoming. Not communicating that is a missed opportunity. I'm not suggesting that they diagnose dentistry. Don't misunderstand me. Communicating concern in the state of California, you don't have to have a license to care, to look, to photograph, or to communicate concern. You have to have a license to diagnose dentistry. The handoff to the doctor and the handoff when dismissing the patient. It is what I call patient flow. And I've seen this botched up, messed up so many times, and I've seen it happen so fluidly so many other times. This is one of the most complex things that I teach because it is behavioral. For those of you who have children, how easy was it to teach them manners? I don't mean the please and thank you manners. I mean the smile interviews save you time. They're less threatening. They create repetition of the message. They show the patient that someone listened and cared. They improve the patient experience. This becomes rhythmic, habitual, just like oral hygiene instructions, just like post-op instructions. So please, expand your team patient education strategies. There's your bullet point. The next thing I want to talk about in terms of a business plan is practice. Yes, sir?
What is hang-up when dismissing?
When we're taking the patient to the front to dismiss them from the procedure that was performed, to either pay, make the next appointment, both. Because when patients are not dismissed properly, these ladies up here sometimes make mistakes because information from the back was not transferred properly. Things that don't get billed for because they don't use routing slips, because there's no handoff, because there's no communication. Good question. All right, the next part of the business plan is about practice statistics. Know your numbers. I know your numbers may be Greek. And for you guys who don't know this, there are more than 32 numbers in dentistry. Most dental people get that. Your numbers tell a story. Just like these numbers tell a story. Our temperature, our heart rate, our cholesterol levels, blood sugar levels, TSH, red blood cell count, white blood cell count, PSA for men. We all have different numbers that are indicators of our health, just as they are in your practice. So let's go to one side of the equation, the overhead side. I'll fill this page up, and then you can take a picture. We're going to talk about the categories and desired ranges of overhead. I know this is what it feels like. This is what happens to your money every month. How many of you run out of money before you run out of month? How many of you run out of month before you run out of money? Depends on what's going on, right? First of all, the most expensive that you pay. Now, by the way, 23 to 28%. This is Southern California. This includes hygienists. It excludes you or associates. This is just employees. This is a team, front office, back office, hygienists, right? Assistants, hygienists. 23 to 28%. Employee benefits, that would be where your payroll taxes go, 4 to 5%. Continuing education, 1 to 2%. Rent, 4 to 6%. If you're on the west side, 10 to 15. There's a high price people pay. Anybody on the west side? High rent. Could be as much as $5, $6 a square foot. It's pricey. Marketing, 3 to 4%. Professional services, that would be accountants, attorneys, IT, payroll services, consultants. Consultant could fall under professional services or it could fall under CE, whichever you prefer. Professional services, 3 to 4%. Lab fees, 9 to 10%. Now, if you're running lab fees and that costs 12%, but every one of your cases are dropping in, don't change. That's valuable. That's so valuable. Collections, 1/2 to 1%. Okay, let me talk about this for just a moment. Collection expense. The biggest part of this 0.5 to 1% collection fee is what? Who knows? The biggest outlay of money that you pay to collect money is what? Credit cards. So I'm going to talk to you about that for just a second. I have a good 20. Peter's friends with probably 19 of them. We got a lot of friends that are in this business. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to use the number 20. Out of my 20 friends that are in this business, 19 of them, they're lovely guys, but they're sharks. They swim in that ocean and they're just waiting for you. I refer to one. Well, no, well, anybody who loans money is also in that business, in the business of processing credit cards as well. Now, a lot of lenders like to lump in the credit card business. So I'm going to give you a better deal on that loan, but I'm going to get your processing business too. And I'm going to make money off of you two ways. So they weave it in together. They're kind of crafty. I mean, are they what? No, there's no you're talking about a loan. I'm just talking about credit card processing. So let me say this about credit card processing. If you text to me right now, CC processing, I can have your statement analyzed, no obligation, completely confidential, by the one friend of mine that I refer to, not the sharks. And I'll be happy to have that analyzed. And if he can save you, he can save you. And I will let you know. I won't turn them loose on you until I tell you what they can do for you and if you're interested. Fair enough? Completely confidential. I've seen my buddy save people lots of money. I think the most was like $15,000 a year. It depends on your volume of processing. If you would like to have your statement, there's a lot that you don't know about what you're paying, and there's a lot that I don't even know about what is paid. That's not my business. But there are a lot of annual fees, hidden fees, recurring fees, fees for every transaction. It's not just about rate. Don't kid yourselves. Yes?
These are percentages of production or collection?
Collections. Very good question. He says, are these percentages of production or collections? Collections is the only number you take to the bank. You don't take production to the bank. All right. If you want me to have your processing analyzed, text CC processing. The next category is dental supplies, 5 to 7%. We're getting smarter these days. You know, Net 32, CDA got into it. People are buying dental supplies from Amazon and online, and there's some stuff to be said, savings to be made. But be careful about some of these perishable products that you're buying that are sitting in hot cars in deserts waiting to get to your office. I'm generalizing. There are some things that don't have the kind of perishable shelf life than other dental supplies. Does it really matter where you buy 2x2s from? No. So if you can save money, there's money to be saved. Office operations. That's not the rent. That's the postage. That's the telephone bill. That's the computer toner. That's the office supplies. That's the various things, janitorial supplies, office supplies 8 to 10%. And you're like, well, where am I in there? The owner, if you're really healthy, now understand, 25 to 40% for an owner. Now that doesn't show, you add those up and that doesn't balance necessarily. Because some of you may be in the process of doing a couple of things, paying down debt service, paying off student loans, paying an associate. That's going to take away from your 25 to 40%. If you choose to practice on the west side and you voluntarily are in the high rent district, that's going to come out of your pocket. So, how do we do this? How do we develop a budget? Yes, sir. Yep. All right. This seems to be confusing for a lot of people that I talk to, so let me spend just a few more moments on it. Developing a budget. What is a budget? What is a budget? Well, how do we develop it, should I say? We're going to get the most recent 12 months of a profit and loss statement. And we're going to take each line item and we're going to properly categorize them. So let me give an example of miscategorized. In this profit and loss statement, the salaries show to be $670,000. The officer does not go into salaries. The officer is a separate category. This is out of my book. And you see owner's compensation is those percentage categories that I just gave you, that's for all of these things right here. All right? So there are multiple items that fall within a category, and not all of you have the same expense line items. Some of you may pay more for marketing than others. Some of you may pay more for rent than others. Some of you may be more insured than others. But 11 is the category for the owner, and if the employer puts himself in salaries, then that is not 23 to 28% of $1.2 million. You follow me? So we have to organize things properly, and often when I'm analyzing P&Ls, I have to move things around and recalculate. These are my categories. Now, they're not out of whack. Most people that are in dentistry, accountants, people that know numbers, are just fine with these, and they're just fine with those percentages. But some accountants do not categorize things the same way others do. It's not about right or wrong. It's about, do you know what you're looking at? And if you're trying to budget and you're speaking a different language than your accountant, we have an issue. So, the next thing that we do is we've now taken each line item, we put it into its proper category, and we give ourselves a nominal wage. I know you're worth $1 million a year, but you can't pay yourself $1 million a year because your business might not be able to afford that right now. So what's nominal? What's it take for you to live comfortably? If your bank account gets fat and you can bonus yourself at the latter part of the year, great. But don't bleed your business dry paying yourself what you want when it's going to struggle to pay the other bills. That's probably why you can't pay the other bills. Maybe. I divide all those categories by a total of 12. I add the categories up. I add about $2,000 to $5,000 per month for what I call slush or unexpected expenses. And now we have what I call the break-even point, the point at which the business begins to profit. Now we have a number. We know we need to collect $57,000 a month, hypothetically, in order to pay all the bills, to get a paycheck. But in order to collect $57,000 a year, you might have to produce more than that. Particularly if your computer shows unadjusted numbers, it might be 25 or 35% more than that. Everybody understand what I'm talking about? Adjustments for PPOs. Are there any questions about this? Please ask. If you have the question, I promise you 5 others do. None. Clear as mud. Clear as mud? Mud's not clear.
Those adjustments are tax deductible?
No. The adjustments, this is production adjustments. So your UCR crown fee is $1,200 and you're a Delta provider and you agree to do it for $800, there's a $400 adjustment. On the production side, you collect what you collect, and that's what goes into the bank. And that's what profit and loss is based on. Most doctors' stomachs turn when they look at the reality. Yesterday I was in an office, the adjustments are 41% off of the UCR fees, just because of the decision to be in contract. I'll come back to that in a moment. There's only so much overhead that you can control. There's only so much that you can save. I know you guys are all caught up on, watch these dental supplies, watch this overtime. There's only so much you can do. If you're not allowing your employees to go to the bathroom and use more than 2 squares, you're tripping over nickels. That's pushing the envelope too far. What we really need to be doing is looking at the other side of the equation. See, here's our overhead, but what about this side over here? What about the production side? I know it says collections, but production turns into collections. This is the other side, which is where we're spending our money. So let's go there. What numbers are we looking at on the other side of the equation? Do you really have an overhead problem, or do you have a production and collection problems? And my experience in 28 years is that more often than not, I go in and I work with my clients and show them how to improve the practice, not by getting more new patients, not by cutting the overhead, but by improving production and collections, by doing all these things we're talking about today. It's not overly complex, but I'll tell you, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. If it's convenient and it's easy, you're doing it wrong. Good things require hard work. Growing a practice and improving the production and collection side takes hard work. Recall drives hygiene, hygiene drives exams, exams drive restorative, restorative drives collections. It's a cycle that goes around and around. Lady says to me, "You're probably going to ask me to do more of that recall." I say, "Probably so." She goes, I said, "But that's really your choice." I said, "I tell you what, let's not do it." She said, "If I don't do the recall, then my fill rate's going to go to 50%. I said, "Sounds like we better do it." It's not fun. You go back and tell your employees on Monday, recall is sexy, glamorous, and fun. And you're going to have fun doing it. Don't do the recall, don't get them in for hygiene. Don't get them in for hygiene, we don't do the exam. Don't do the exam, you don't find the production. Don't do the production, you don't get the collections. Don't get the collections, we go live in a van down by the river. So let's look at what that numbers on the other side of the equation are all about. In recall, I put measurement systems into place where we measure the attempts that are made for recall, the people that are spoken to, the appointments that are scheduled, the fill rate, the number of new patients coming in. Then in hygiene, we look at the daily average of production, we look at the perio maintenance appointments, we look at the quantity of SRPs. In exams, we measure photographs, we measure handoffs, we measure x-rays, we measure probing. Measure probing. I know you measure probing when you probe, but do you measure the quantity of patients that are being probed? You say to me, my standard of care is to do probing every year, right, Doc? Every year. Or more, of course, for periodontally challenged patients, absolutely. That's what they, "Oh yeah, we do it." I say, "Prove it." Well, you have to look in every chart. Here, why don't you post it? Post it as a non-billable, man-made code. If you got 1,000 patients, you better have 1,000 occurrences within a year, right? "Oh, we post it." I say, "Well, how come there's only 241 of them?" Are you talking out of both sides of your mouth? You say you probe, but do you? That is the beginning of why some perio programs are weak, because it's really not being done. On the restorative side, we measure procedures, particularly productive procedures. Most of you, what's high production? Indirects of all kinds, right? Ortho, if you do ortho. Sleep apnea appliances, if you do appliances. Implant placement, if you do that. If you're endo, endo. You don't measure too many different things. Do we measure the procedures? My experience has been that the quantity of indirect restorations in a practice, usually in a healthy practice, is generating 35 to 50% of the production in a month. If it's not in your practice, you have to ask yourself, what are we not doing that could cause it to happen? There are answers to that question. On the production side, we certainly measure the daily average of restorative production. We measure the adjustments. On the collection side, we measure over-the-counter collections. We measure the receivables. We measure the receivables over 90 days. We measure the outstanding insurance claims. And then when all that's done, we have what's left over. And as we were talking about before, we look at what you get. We look at your wage, your salary, your benefits, your sheltered items. Some of you run things through your business, but it's an add back. It's known as an add back. It goes into category 11. Your car, your child who doesn't work in the office, your spouse who gets a paycheck who never has been met by the employees. That gold that you call dental supplies, and you don't even use gold. You follow what I'm saying? We got to look at the other side of the equation. Speaking of insurance, we want to update, negotiate fee schedules, and analyze reduced fee plans to see if they're still right for you. Now, this is a very sensitive subject, and I would say to you, you can come ask me questions later about this, because it can get really deep. But let me say this. Here's what. You sign up for these plans for the sake of getting new patients and having the additional revenue, but what we really have to do is we have to compare that to the adjustments, the downcoding, the denials, the extra time that is spent. See why I suggest staying away from it? There's a lot of time and energy that's put into playing that insurance game, and you have to ask yourself, is it really causing me a gain or a loss in my business? It's very frustrating for many of you. I know it. I deal with this all the time. So the question really is, what are we going to do about it? Well, if you want to analyze whether it's right dropping, when I say drop, I mean go out of network. If you want to go out of network with a plan, look at a few things first. How long does it take to get reimbursed from the plan? Compare the fee schedules, and that's what most of you are looking at. Compare the headaches and the resubmissions that are associated with sending claims. Compare the number of active patients that you have on that plan. How many do you really have? Might not be risky if you dropped it if you only got 10 patients. If you got 400, that might be a different story. Compare the production and collections generated from the patients on the plan over a 6 to 12 month period of time compared to your UCR fees. What's the difference? 25%, 20%, 50%? What's it costing you? What's the lost opportunity time? If you had a higher paying plan patient or a cash patient in the chair, what could you be generating? I know if you don't have any patient in the chair, it's not all that bad. But please understand that when we look at the costs associated with having the reduced fee, sometimes, how many of you have felt as though you are paying money to do dentistry? Look at the heads nodding. Measure the number of new patients that we're seeing over a 6 to 12 month period of time. Are you really getting more new patients? Let's see, the email this week that I'm talking to a client, it's a company called 5 Lakes, where they analyze and negotiate PPO fee schedules. There's a number of them out there. I don't know them all. I don't even try to keep up with them because sometimes these companies come and they're gone as fast as they showed up. But I do suggest that you have someone try to negotiate those fees on your behalf, someone that specializes in that, if you're struggling with those fee schedules. But these are the things that I would look at if I were considering going out of network. This takes a little bit of time to analyze this stuff. Don't just pull the trigger. You might be shooting yourself in the foot. I talked to a client this week, and he's ready to drop Delta, but if he doesn't drop Delta, if he does drop Delta, he's doing this analysis, and he's like, ooh, this might cause me more problems than I'm willing to deal with. So learn and understand and review your numbers regularly. All right. Business plan continues with customer service. Customer service begins on the phone. Please, it's not dental office. Why are you bothering me? Thank you for calling Bay Dental. This is Amy. How may I help you? How many of you like that? There's nothing wrong with that. What about this? Thank you for calling Bay Dental. This is Amy, and I'd be happy to help you. Do you see the difference? You choose. The caller is going to have a different perception if the person sounds like they want to help the caller versus how may I help you? Job requirements for people that answer the phone. Excellent phone voice. They speak clearly. They have common sense and sincerity when they're talking. They have an excellent disposition, and they have a sincere interest in other people. Would you hire a hygienist with no arms? Why would we hire someone on the phone? That's what I'm talking about, filtering on the phone, the telephone interview. What do they sound like? Do they sound the part? Come on. Use telephone slips to guide and create continuity when there are new patients. If you will text the words telephone slips to me, I will send to you new patient telephone information slip, and I will send you an information slip that I have designed for emergency callers. The purpose of the slip is to create continuity with information so that when the patient arrives, there is information that can go into your hands on a piece of paper that gives you information so you don't have to ask again. There's a difference in walking in and saying, Crystal, I know that you talked to Betty on the phone, and she said that you were experiencing pain at a level 5. Is it still like that? Versus, how can we help you today? So you got a tooth that's how do you want to show up? How do you want to show up? That's all I have to say about that in the interest of time. I'm going to talk about this. If you happen to come to my marketing lecture tomorrow, I'm going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow, so you'll get a little bit of repetition. But people write reviews. So let's talk about what people say in reviews, because there's valuable information. Go online and read reviews. They'll tell you what's important to people, not just your reviews, but all reviews. People want clear communication. They want clear communication about the problem, the solutions, the consequences, the cost, the time involved. Some people even want to know what you're doing as you're doing it. By the way, if you've got an engineer in the chair, you might want to ask that question. Would you like to know what I'm doing as I'm doing it, or would you like to just not know? If somebody wants to know, make them happy by telling them. I'm about to grind the crap out of your tooth right now. No. Patients want convenience. Patients want popular times. Patients want flexible hours. Patients want same-day dentistry. That's not to say that we should have to always provide same-day dentistry, because if you have a schedule that's already full, you may not be able to offer that. If you have extra treatment rooms and the ability, sure, but at whose expense? Don't keep others waiting. I know you're hungry for the production. I got it. At whose expense? Working through lunch? Going home late? Where do you draw the line? Employees can get upset. Patients want happy, friendly interactions. They want strong telephone skills. They want clear communication that makes sense. They don't want to be made wrong. Don't embarrass people. Don't shame people. Don't blame people. You haven't been to the dentistry in 6 years? I can't believe you. Or the hygienist. You're a bad girl. None of that matters. That's not how you pull people in. Patients want punctuality. They want to be seated on time. They want you to run on time. They want you to let them go on time. If you have a problem making it to work on time, dare I say so boldly, you are part of the problem in your practice. Because when you come in late, you run late. And when you run late, you finish late. And then you got pissed off people all around you. People want clean and sterile. Ladies, you walk into the restaurant that you've been dying to go to, and the restroom is kind of dirty and nasty. What are you thinking about the kitchen now? Clean and sterile everywhere. People want nice, people want modern, people want safe. Facility, technology, the location, the surroundings, the paint, the flooring. If it still looks like 1982, you need an update. Fancied or real, a patient's perception of your practice from what they see is their reality. I don't care what your reality is. I don't care what your opinion is. What you should care about is what your patients think when they sit. Oh my gosh, is that a cockroach? I got a picture of that. I got a picture of that in a dental office. 2 of them up there, brother and sister, both dead. I'm like, they're not even moving. Why are they still up there, doctor? He goes, we didn't know they were up there. But when I see that crap, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if they sterilize their instruments. You don't even want that kind of stuff going through people's heads. Patients want high-quality treatment. They don't know high-quality treatment. They just know whether it hurts or not. Patients want to deal with people that have virtues and values. What does that mean for those of you who are slightly confused in this moment? That means people that are genuine, people that are selfless, people that are humble, people that demonstrate integrity. They're honest. They're kind. They genuinely care about other people. This comes from here. This didn't come from here. They're patient. They're tolerant. Do you know how painful it is for me to deal with Dr. Weiner? Oh my gosh. But when I'm talking to him, he doesn't know that's how I feel. You do, but don't. That's why I'm not telling you his real name. They want to go to a dental office and deal with people that are happy and have a little bit of fun, and they don't want to deal with somebody who lacks confidence. People that are unsure. Well, it might need this and it might need that, but we'll try this. Try? You're not going to put a bird in my tooth if you're trying. Dude, you're going to do that, you better know what you're talking about. Keep the focus on having fun with people and helping them with what they need. The money takes care of itself. You get that formula backwards, and I've seen a lot of people, oh, I'm going to serve my patients, and we're going to do this, and we're going to help them. I'm going to save lives. And by the way, what's our production this month? Oh, be careful. People look at reviews. What are you doing to encourage your patients to write reviews? Let me say this. If you don't have any way of outwardly, through email or text messages, asking people to write a review about their experience in your practice, text the word reviews to me, and I have several friends who do this. Social Review Wizard, I'm not sure if you guys do that, but there are a lot of demand force, you know. There are a lot of companies that do it, but if you don't have anybody that's doing that, text the word reviews, and I'll have my friends that own a company called Social Review Wizard get in touch with you and talk to you about how they do that. Reviews. Give your patients what they want. They want extreme customer service. Patients remember customer service more than they know your dentistry. Whoops, marketing plan continues with marketing. Guys, I'm going to go through this real fast because I'm talking about this tomorrow. You better have your house in order if you're going to spend money marketing. What is the point? Close the back door. Because I've talked to too many people that are losing patients, and they think the answer to their problem is more new patients. That back door is going to stay open. You spend all the money you want. How much can I afford on marketing? 3 to 4%, as we talked about before. 10 to 15% if you're starting. That is if you have extra money in your budget. There's internal marketing, the things that we do that cost very little. There are promotional marketing things that we do with pictures on the walls and video and pamphlets and window clings. There's external marketing in the way of external advertising, Groupon, direct mail pieces, radio, television, signage. There are ways you can spend a lot of money. I'm going to tell you right now the same thing I'll tell you tomorrow. I have not found one type of marketing that generates solid, repeatable results, except for what? What you do internally. The experience that you create that makes people want to come back. Put your money there first. Social media, you must have an online presence. You must have an online presence that is well-written, well-spoken, and well represents your practice. And I've seen some pretty schlocky, misspelled websites out there. That's what these guys do. If you are interested in learning more, this is not bottom shelf stuff over here. These guys are high caliber. There are people that have entry-level websites, and there's a place for that. These guys do pretty top shelf stuff. Well-spoken, well-written, they're going to get to know you. If you want to learn more about videography or a high-level website, text me the word videography. And please, walk the walk. You must restore the mouths of yourself and your employees. This is a new client of mine up here in the top. You don't see his eyes because I'm not going to embarrass somebody like that, but I'm going to tell you, look at those teeth. And you got a doctor like that talking to you about cosmetic dentistry. I'm like, dude, this is the pot calling the kettle black. This is the height of hypocrisy. What in the hell is the matter with you? I got the guy next door who's an anterior dentist friend of mine, and I'm going to try to hook them up together and say, what can you do for my buddy here? Walk the walk, please. Fix the bad breath, too. Develop and follow through on your marketing projects. Everything is marketing, and marketing never ends. And finally, a business plan requires massive action. How many of you have heard the saying and believe wholeheartedly that knowledge is power? How many of you believe that? I am sorry to tell you that you are about as wrong as you can be. Knowledge is not power. Doing something with the knowledge is. You're delusional. I got a circle of friends that don't care anything about what you think, what you feel, or what you believe. You know what they care about? What do they care about, Peter? What you do, baby. I don't care what you think or feel. It's what you do. You can have all the knowledge you want and do nothing with it. You're not going to go anywhere. Massive action, action plans, due dates, follow through, accountability, consequences. Don't do it, lose your job. Now that sounds harsh, but are you trying to grow? Are you trying to improve? Or is mediocrity okay? This is a beautiful statement. There's a principle, which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. What does that mean? That's exact. She says presumptions before finding out what's going on. It's forming an opinion about something before you even give it a shot. I grew up with a mother who made Brussels sprouts, and she boiled them, and they stunk. I don't like Brussels sprouts. Boiled Brussels sprouts. They smell up the whole house, they don't taste good, and they make you fart when you eat them. And I come home one day, many years later, and that smell, oh my gosh. I'm like, honey, what is the smell? She goes, oh, I got this new recipe for Brussels sprouts. I'm like, I'm leaving. She goes, sit down, shut up, we're having dinner. I'm like, listen, you understand, I don't do this Brussels sprout crap. I have a strong opinion about those. Are nasty, gross. She says, I got this great new recipe. I'm telling you what, cut these things up. I roll them in some very special olive oil, put some seasoned pepper and salt on them, and I bake them, and they're fabulous. I'm like, you have lost your mind. There's nothing about Brussels sprouts that is good. And I'm going to tell you what, I had to try them because she made dinner, and I asked for more. You see, I had a very strong opinion about Brussels sprouts, and I went through a different experience. And my experience changed my opinion. And I'm going to suggest to you, you may have an opinion about working on the business side of your practice, but if you'll get into massive action, you may experience something different, and you may grow, and you may improve. Learn what to do, form better habits, seek help from people that can help you get there faster. The biggest reason that people fail is because they fail to plan. They fail to take action. I'll end with this. I told you at the end, you've been texting me throughout. I'll remind you of a few more things. If you would like to be on our CE mailing list, please text to me CE invitations, and we'll put you, now mind you, you've got to put your email in this now. I will put you on, Becky is the Director of Continuing Education in my company. She will get you on our email mailing list for the CE courses that we do if you give us permission by texting CE invitations. If you're interested in talking about a complimentary evaluation of your practice, provided you're in Southern California, text to me, free evaluation. Better yet, come see me at my booth or at the tabletop, and I'd love to talk to you about that. I don't go to New Zealand. If you're interested in the credit card processing, text CC processing. And again, I'll remind you, please text your name, your email. Your name and your email are very important, or otherwise I won't be able to get back to you. I'll be around for questions. I appreciate all of you today. Thank you very much. It's good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good to meet you, man. We'll see you around.
Pardon me?
Sure, because I would love to talk to you about the office.
You can come see me. I don't know if they have numbers, but where all the exhibitors are.
Is that your business card?
It is.
Yeah, may I have?
Yes.
Because I would